the questions aren't, are you finally going to win it? Are you finally going to win it? It's now, what do you do to go back-to-back? What do you do to try and make it happen again and bring Sellers Racing another grandfather clock back to their home shop in Danville, Virginia?
I mean, he joined elite company. We got Lee Pulliam as a previous winner of the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. Timothy Peters, Curtis Markham, Mike Skinner, and let's just talk about Mark Martin. And you've got other names that just sort of resonate that have won the grandfather clock.
Big-time names, former national champions in the NASCAR Advanced Auto Park Wheatley Series. Philip Morris has won this race on multiple occasions. Dennis Setzer, who went on to make his name in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, is a winner of this race. Dexter Knipe Sr., his son, is racing today as well. Barry Beggerly, who's run so many of the short tracks, especially through the Piedmont and North Carolina, is a multiple-time champion of this race. Lee Pulliam, who's got a few cars in today's race. So many big names have won this race. Tommy Lemons Jr., Mike Looney, who's going to try and go for his second grandfather clock today. If you win this, you become a who's who of late model stock car racing almost instantaneously, such is the prestige of the ValleyStar Credit Union 300.
So in order to do that, you've got to make the main feature, and we are getting ready to set the starting lineup for today's ValleyStar Credit Union 300. There you see on the screen, we've got our beautiful pace car here from Martinsville Speedway getting ready to lead. Qualifying race number 1, Bobby McCarty, Daniel Silvestri. They will take up row number 1. 21 drivers are on the racetrack right now, and the top 10 will advance to the main feature. So 25 laps around a half-mile racetrack, that doesn't take long. I mean, we're talking qualifying around 19, 20 seconds each lap. If you're starting 20th, 15th, or 20th, you really have got to go after it, because this race could go by extremely quick, and then we'll see the checkered flag come out, and if you're 11th on back, you're going home.
It should, in theory, go quick, but everybody else in the field knows that, especially if you're starting towards the back, you have to go in order to make it into the top 10. You're going to see people in the back of this field be really aggressive. We could see cautions. We don't count caution laps. Who knows? That might extend things a little bit. You never know. That's part of the beauty of Martinsville.
That's right. So we'll be watching around 9th, 10th, and 11th through 12th to see what those cars are doing and who is going to make the main feature. The ValleyStar Credit Union 300, if you're just joining us, we're a day late. That's okay. We're glad we're here. Beautiful conditions. It's mostly cloudy, but we do see that sunshine peeking through the clouds here in the southwestern part of Virginia. The biggest late model stock car race in the country is happening today, and we're so excited you're here with us. There's a look at the skies here, James. Didn't look like that yesterday, and we're glad it looks like this today. It's very comfortable outside, and what a crowd that has come to be here at the racetrack.
So many people, and some of the best racing fans. I know Dan Warner Jr.'s talked about it so much on the download, left, right, and center, but the late model stock car fans, the ones that are invested at this level of racing, really do have an appreciation for racing in an almost sort of purist form, where it's, we got live straight rear axles. We don't really have anything fancy of these late model stock cars, and they are built to take a beating. So this is put your elbows up on the wheel, get up on it, and don't be afraid to bounce off one another to try and get to the front type racing, which has put on a tremendous amount of good finishes this year. Whether or not you've been watching any of the Virginia Triple Crown, any of the big races at any of the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series tracks that stream on FloRacing, or in the Solid Rock Carriers car store, pretty much anywhere there's been late model stock car racing on FloRacing this year, there have been a bevy of fantastic finishes, and I have a hunch, Brian White, that today is going to be no exception. But that's just me.
I'm going to go right along with you. If I was a betting man, if we were in Vegas right now, I would certainly say that's going to be the case. There are the very important people. Crew chiefs, they're extremely important, but I would argue these folks are very important as well. We're talking about the spotters who are going to be helping talk to their drivers here this afternoon, guide them through this racetrack, tell them where the cars are running around them, who's on the inside, who's on the outside. Maybe somebody's trying something a little fancy. They're doing something a little bit different. These eyes will help communicate to those drivers as far as what's going on to the speedway. And look at these race cars right now. They look absolutely pristine. They are beautiful. I walked down there. You walked down there. We looked at them. I took some pictures of them, talked with the team members as well. They're not going to look like that at the end of the evening. When the checkered flag falls, as you mentioned, darkness, these beautiful lights will come on and illuminate the racetrack. I think we're going to see some battered race cars. What do you think?
We might, but we also have a lot of really fast race cars, too. Just in the shot that we've seen here as we start panning up towards the back of the grid, I've seen a multiple-time Cars Tour champion. I've seen a Cars Tour winner. I've seen a former Myrtle Beach 400 winner. I've seen a former ValleyStar Credit Union 300 champion. And I've seen a Hickory Motor Speedway track champion, all in that shot, all in the span of like 15 seconds. And if you brought one of those drivers to any show in the NASCAR Advanced Auto Park Weekly Series at any of your local short tracks, that'd be a headline affair. But this is Martinsville, and what constitutes big names? You raise the definition a little bit, right?
You really do, because so many of these drivers have multiple accomplishments. We're looking at our notes here. I'm looking on your computer. I'm looking at my paper here. Just so many things these drivers have done over the course of the years. And, we've got a mix of drivers, some extremely young, 15 years of age. Chris Horton Jr. from South Mills, North Carolina. Others up to 50-plus years of age. So you've got experience levels, some drivers just cutting their teeth. And I say 15. We know they've been racing since they've been 6 or 7, even younger than that. But now they're in a full body size stock car, a late model stock car, all the horsepower that comes along with that, car control. So you're going to see, again, a mix of experience from those rookie competitors to those drivers who have been here for a very, very long time.
I think you make a really good point about the young drivers who have experience. Maybe not so much experience in a late model stock car, but a lot of them have come through the U.S. Legends car system and have run Bandoleros and have run Legends cars. And I noticed, just looking through my notes, that we have multiple state champions from the Young Lions class. We have a national champion once upon a time from the Young Lions, Zach Miracle, who's going to try to make this race. So yes, even though the young ones might not necessarily have the experience in this kind of car, this is likely at this point probably their 7th or 8th year of competition in some form of full body race car.
So again, drivers on the racetrack right now, 21 in total, getting set for qualifying race number 1. It'll be one of 4 that take place here this afternoon to set the starting lineup for the 200-lap main feature, which will happen around 5 o'clock Eastern time this afternoon. Thanks for tuning in to FloRacing. You're watching live flag-to-flag coverage of the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, the biggest, richest late-model stock car race in the country. Drivers in their office, they're ready to go to work, ready to go to battle to make the main feature.
I also have to ask here, if this is the short track, then does that make the pace car the Toyota Camry here at Martinsville? Perhaps just a passing thought, right?
I think you're right. I think you're right.
By no means am I an athlete. That's all my friends in high school were. But that seems to make logical sense to me. Perhaps.
Well, let's go with it. I like it. Yeah.
It will be the Toyota Camry, I suppose, that will bring us to the green flag for heat race number 1, which is going to start momentarily. You see the full lineup of cars, 21 drivers, of which only 10 are going to advance into the feature. So everybody that's starting sort of around the start-finish line and on back, immediately, you have work to do. And I have to imagine as a driver that there's a bit of added pressure that comes before you even take the green flag. Everybody feels a little bit of it because it is Martinsville. But to know that you already are in a starting spot where you have to work your way up to the front, and you know you have to go get a few spots right off the bat, or your day's going to be done in 25 laps, I got to believe the people on the back end of this grid are probably a little bit more anxious than they normally would be if they were competing at their local short track.
And I've said this before, and I'll say it again because I think it's so important, because I talked to the drivers as you did. Just rolling up onto the property, just seeing the size, the magnitude of the stadium, your eyeballs just open up instantly like, wow, I have arrived. I am at Martinsville Speedway. So just the ambiance, just being here, the prestige, the history of this racetrack certainly plays into everybody's mind. But then now, I got to make the field. I've got to be among those top 10 finishers in the race. So the drivers have been thinking about that. They've been using a lot of strategy call, talking with their crew chiefs. At the hotel earlier this morning, I was listening to some of the crew chiefs talking about what they want to do here today to prepare for the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, because it is so hard to make. Nobody is locked into the field. I don't care if you won the race 10 years ago, last year, or if you won the pole on Friday evening. You are not set or guaranteed a starting spot in this race. race. So lots of pressure right now because, hey, you could be starting P1, go down and have some trouble, get turned around, and finish 12th. That means you're not going to make the main feature.
You could go backwards, you could go forwards. That's a very good point. But there is a sort of mystique about this place, no question, that forces everyone to raise their game, no question. I first came here 21 years ago, and every time you step through the gates of Martinsville, the magic of this place does not go away. It is a special, special place. It is one where everybody wants to celebrate in front of the flag stand, Victory Lane, at the end of the night. And we've got a whole day's worth of racing action to find out who will be the 38th ValleyStar Credit Union 300 race winner.
From Martinsville Speedway, you're watching FloRacing. Welcome back to Martinsville Speedway, the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, qualifying race number 1 of 4. It's on the racetrack right now.
Almost set to run the first 25 laps of the afternoon to find out which drivers will be the first 10 to lock themselves into the 200-lap feature later on today.
Exciting stuff here at Martinsville Speedway. Drivers now weaving back and forth, trying to put some heat in those tires. Here is your starting lineup for qualifying race number 1. Kernersville, North Carolina's Bobby McCarty rolls off after he won the pole award Friday night under the lights. Daniel Silvestri makes up the outside of row number 1. Sam Yarborough, Peyton Sellers on row 2. Cress Van Dyke and Kate Brown row 3.
Trevor Warner's experience at Ace Speedway. He starts to the inside of row 4 alongside G.R. Waldrop. Jamie Connell from Fort Arch, North Carolina starts 9th alongside Logan Clark driving for RNS Race Cars on the outside of row 5 and 10th. Carter Langley, the newly minted track champion at South Boston Speedway, starts 11th in this qualifying race alongside Andrew Grady.
Taking a look further back, row number 7, Derek Lancaster from Christiansburg, Virginia, alongside the track promoter, Steve Zacharias. Car number 35 from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Row 8 is where we'll find the 16 entry. That'll be Casey Kelly, alongside Jimmy Mullins from Bassett, Virginia. Row number 9, Camden Gully, and Williamsburg, Virginia's Justin Carroll.
Tristan Barnes starts to the inside of row 10. To his outside is the 2023 Sportsman Division track champion at Bowman Gray Stadium, Chase Robertson. Chase Ratliff out of Bristol, Virginia, rounds out our 21-car field for qualifying race number 1.
Let's go down pit road and Jacqueline Drake.
Caught up with Peyton Sellers, the 2022 champion right here at Martinsville. He said, I feel extremely confident, only getting 1 lap of qualifying in. He's going to be starting on the 2nd row outside, a little bit nervous about the lack of rubber on that outside groove. He said heat race number 1 could get a little bit dicey as we're on that outside lane. Hopes to lay down some rubber and be able to stick it and keep it in the transfer spot.
Here come the cars out of turn number 4, and guess what? The lights have gone off the pace car. That means in 1 more lap, we're going to turn this field loose 25 times around this half-mile paperclip in Martinsville Speedway, Martinsville, Virginia, the site of the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 qualifying race number 1 of 4 in total. Only the top 10 will advance. So that means 11 cars right out of the gate. When we drop that checkered flag, will not make the feature. Here comes the field as they form down the backstretch at a very, very slow clip. But in a matter of moments, they're going to be going so fast as we get set to kick off the 2023 ValleyStar Credit Union 300. Here they come out of turn number 4.
Underneath the flag stand and to the purview of Brandon Wellen and company as we go green flag racing in qualifying race number 1 in Martinsville. And Bobby McCarty and Daniel Silvestri working together Down the back straightaway, you've got an RS race car there from McCarty, and then two Sellers Racing machines with Peyton Sellers working to the inside, trying to get to the bottom of his teammate and potentially snag that second spot. He tucked up right underneath Bobby McCarty and Silvestri, who go door to door as they come underneath the stripe for the first time to complete lap one.
Still side by side, watching the 6 car break a little loose coming out of turn number 2, talking about Bobby McCarty. So fast on Friday and qualifying as well as practice. Here comes the 26 of Peyton Sellers. He briefly looked down the inside, thought about making it 3 wide, coming through turns 3 and 4. He'll think better of it. That allows Bobby McCarty to take sole possession of the catbird seat, but they're still side by side coming off of 2.
Bobby McCarty rode up the racetrack entering turn 3 that last time by, and that allowed Peyton Sellers to get underneath his teammate Daniel Silvestri and jump to the second spot. So Sellers, the defending champion of this race, to second, Silvestri the third, and Sam Yarborough sitting in the 4th position, the 2007 winner of the Myrtle Beach 400. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, this is Trevor Ward and Chris Van Dyke fighting for the 5th position.
They continue to go after it here down the backstretch as we watch Trevor Ward, that 77 black and white car. He'll take possession of that position, but behind him, they're still going to be side by side. Kate Brown, G.R. Waldrop going after it here. Again, we're fighting for the top 10 right now in 10th spot, just outside the frame. That's going to be Jamie Caudell. Here they race now, continuing to go side by side off of turn 2. This is the best battle on the track.
This is the newly crowned Hickory Motor Speedway track champion. The tracks in the NASCAR events on a part of the 3 series. You see to your inside driving for Matt Pusey Racing. Katie Brown to the bottom. He got the job done last weekend at Hickory, trying to win a clock here at Martinsville this weekend, and he will jump to the inside and go 2 P6 ahead of Chris Van Dyke, one of the best qualifying efforts of all time here on Friday night.
Here they come now through turns 3 and 4. We're going to put 5 laps on the scoreboard, make that 6 now as they cross the start-finish line. Still early on, there's your leader, Bobby McCarty, out to about 0.4 of a second. That's the margin that he has right now over Peyton Sellers in that 26 car. Peyton Sellers trying to get it done. Just behind them is where we'll find Sam Yarborough, the 95 car. He rides along in 4th spot, and at the moment, it's relatively tame. Everybody kind of biding their time. I say that to look a little further back. Now we've got a side-by-side battle. That'll be the 18 of Andrew Grady going down there as they work under the 25, Derek Lancaster, and actually that'll be Logan Clark and Casey Kelly going after it as they work down the backstretch back over the turns 3 and 4. Early on, just 7 laps on the scoreboard.
Casey Kelly to the inside of Derek Lancaster. The problem for both of these drivers is that they are a few spots behind the transfer, which is currently held by Jamie Caudell in 10th place. And you can see that gap opening up just to Logan Clark. Clark is a little bit further back than he'd like to be too. He's in 12th, and then you see Andrew Grady just to the edge of your screen there in 11th. But all of these drivers outside of the transfer. Here's the battle proper between Caudell and Grady. This is to be the last driver in and the first driver out as it stands.
That's right, and we still have quite a ways to go. 9 are on the scoreboard as they work off of turn number 2. Jamie Caudell, he's in that spot right now. We're talking about the 10th position. That's the bullseye. Everybody's chasing him. They want to get to that position or higher. Jamie Caudell, the back end, breaking loose of that race car. He doesn't care if it's loose right now. Just take the 10th spot, hold on to it as he looks just ahead of him as we'll find Carter Langley, who rides along in 9th.
Langley is just a little bit further up there. I talked to Andrew Grady, though, a little bit earlier today, and he had a big year last year. The Knightdale, North Carolina native said that, this year he wants to focus on the race, and he just wants to go prove himself. He knows that everybody saw what happened a year ago, but he wants to show everybody that he can wheel. And he's had a good car on tracks like this. We've seen him race at New River All-American Speedway, the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series. He's got tons of wins there. So flat tracks like this suit his driving style, suit his abilities, and he wants the opportunity to get alongside Jamie Caudell and make the feature here at Martinsville. How big that would be for him. He's also racing with a torn labrum that he pulled off earlier this year, so he's been a little bit hurt all season. He said, I'll wait until shoulder surgery after we get done racing. That's the kind of competitor that Andrew Grady is, as tough as they come in the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series.
He's trying to close in with the 2003 winner of the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, talking about Jamie Caudell from 4 Oaks, North Carolina. He is holding on to that 10th spot here at lap number 13. That means we're halfway home. 13 laps have been completed, 12 more to go. And look at that battle starting to heat up closer to the front of the field. That's on the left-hand side of your screen. Daniel Silvestri, the 97 car, closing in to the defending winner, Peyton Sellers. And they work back to turns 1 and 2. So can Silvestri get up there and take that second position?
Silvestri, I'd like to think, probably has a few extra frames by virtue of the fact that he is a student at Virginia Tech, not too far away Blacksburg. So any of the Hokies out here in the stands, you've got an instantaneous drive to Route 4. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, we return our eyes to the transfer battle. Cardell and Grady. Here's Logan Clark and Casey Kelly, who's did a nice job of climbing for the back of the field, but he's got to pass Clark and Grady and Cardell if he wants a shot to make the feature.
That's right, Casey Kelly, P3. He's netted 3 positions closer to the front of the field. Here they come through turns 3 and 4. Logan Clark holding on to position number 12, but it's not good enough because he's got to get 2 more spots up there. As we got problems on the racetrack now, that'll put us under our first yellow flag of the afternoon.
They had just completed the 15th lap, and it's for a car over. You see it on the speed shot here, the 35 machine of Steve Zacharias, the general manager and promoter of Martinsville Speedway. So yes, we took a look at the entry list and we said, wait a second. Well, we thought he'd be too busy getting ready for the South Carolina 400. That's not too far away either. But no, this race he always comes out and tries to run, but that's not where you want to be stuck. He's going to make his way back off of the curb, back onto the front straightaway, and try and gain a few more spots. He's got work to do now if he wants an opportunity to make it into the top 10. That's what matters here. Winning this race is nice. It means you get good track position for the feature, but making the top 10 is the most important piece of the qualifying races and of the first part in the first 100 laps of the 300 on the 2023 ValleyStar Credit Union 300 program.
Caution flag number 1 in qualifying race 1 of the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. 41-year-old Steve Zacharias in car number 35 went for a spin coming off of turn number 4. He was running in 15th position, so he already needed to gain 5 more spots to make the main feature. Now his work got just a little bit harder as he'll get set to go back after it. 15 laps are on the board. That means we're only going to have 10 more to go to wrap up qualifying race number 1. There's your leader, Bobby McCarty. Since we've dropped the green flag, he has been right where he needs to be. Again, so fast all weekend long. And despite a green racetrack, it rained all day yesterday, last night, as well as late Friday night. It's kind of funny. After qualifying ended, I started feeling the sprinkles drop on us here. So it's rained ever since then. Finally, the Mother Nature has allowed us to go racing here on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. And Bobby McCarty, despite a green racetrack, he's still fast.
If you want to know how special this race is, normally all the decals on Bobby McCarty's car, especially if you see him in the Cars Tour in some of the Virginia Triple Crown races, they are glossy. Today, they are chrome. They replace every single decal on that car where they could to give it this patent chrome sheen. Incidentally, Steve Zacharias, who spun around to bring out that first yellow, has more of the glossy look that we're used to seeing. But Bobby brought out the chrome on the 6 to try and bring a little bit more sparkle to victory lane if he can get there at the end of the night. So just a little added touch to try and raise the game a little bit here in Martinsville.
That's right. Here comes the field as they work down the backstretch over in turns 3 and 4 now. Pace car has hit pit lane. We're set for a restart. 15 in the books, 10 more to go. Green flag is back in the air for the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 qualifying race number 1. Firing off into turns 1 and 2 will be Bobby McCarty, but here comes Peyton Sellers. Look at him breaking loose behind him as they're side by side down the backstretch. Now McCarty will clear the 26 race car, and now they'll be side by side for the second spot. Here comes Daniel Silvestri. He wants to get back to the runner-up position.
Silvestri back to the inside of Peyton Sellers. I saw Cade Brown give Chris Van Dyke the bumper entering turn 1 last time by. So Van Dyke went up the racetrack with a little bit of trouble, and now all of a sudden you've got good battles all over the racetrack. Look at Trevor Ward, who's made his way up to the 4th position. We barely called his name in this heat, but the Winston-Salem, North Carolina native runs a lot at Ace Speedway. There are a tremendous amount of characteristics that Ace and Martinsville share in terms of shape and of banking and of brake uses, most importantly. So I'm not surprised at all to see Trevor Ward up here fighting Peyton Sellers for a spot in the top 3 qualifying race 1.
Here he comes. He looked down to the inside of Peyton Sellers as they raced back to turns 3 and 4. Now he still has the nose of the race car under Peyton Sellers. Here they come at the end of the front stretch, going down to turns 1 and 2. Sellers slams the door on him, says no thank you. I want to hold on to that position as they exit corner number 2 and race down the backstretch. But that 77 car, very, very fast. We're talking about Winston-Salem's Trevor Ward as he continues to go to work on Peyton Sellers coming off the 4.
The question now, if you're any of these drivers, is how hard do you work to race knowing that everybody that you see on screen here all the way back to Chris Van Dyke is in the championship spot. However, back here, now that we've shuffled a little bit further back, this For 10th is Andrew Grady, and Casey Kelly make contact.
Look at him go after it here as they race back over into turns 3 and 4. Looking at Casey Kelly, car number 16, going to work now as they hit the start-finish line. Right now, it is going to be Casey Kelly being scored in 11th position as they take him back to turns 1 and 2. And again, we have now completed 20 of the 25 laps. And here they go, back to turns 3 and 4, side by side for the runner-up position.
Here we go, Peyton Sellers, Trevor Ward racing together now within the final 5 laps of qualifying race number 1. Ward to the inside of Sellers to try and get a little bit better starting position as these two go door to door down the back straightaway. And Sam Yarbrough is right there ready to take advantage as these two get into one another.
So here they go, side by side. This is actually for position number 3 as Sellers, the Danville Toyota. That race car broke loose coming out from turn number 4. He has his work cut out for him, solving on that steering wheel. Here comes the 77 of Trevor Ward as he looks down to the inside. They're side by side for position number 3. Laps winding down when they come by the start-finish line. This time by just 2 more, make that 1 more lap to go. White flag is in the air, half of a mile to go.
Sam Yarbrough ready to take advantage of this. As you see this battle here all happening behind Bobby McCarty and Daniel Silvestri. McCarty clear by half a straightaway in turns 3 and 4 for the final time.
Here comes Bobby McCarty, so fast all weekend long. Off of turn number 4, checkers are in the air. Bobby McCarty wins qualifying race number 1, but the battle's on for 10th position.
Casey Kelly in the 16 machine will get the last spot out of qualifying race number 1, finishes 10th, and he will advance to the feature. And Andrew Grady finishes 11th and will just miss out on the 2023 ValleyStar Credit Union 300. They were all over each other in the final 5 laps, but for Bobby McCarty, that's a different problem that he doesn't have to deal with at all. Qualified up front, stayed up there, made that look about as easy as you possibly can, and established himself. Not that he wasn't there already, but if you didn't believe it, this is a driver who is a clear favorite, one of them at least, to win the 38th ValleyStar Credit Union 300 later tonight.
Making his 7th Martinsville start, his best finish of 4th game in 2019. He wants to better that by 3 and get that first grandfather clock. We'll see if the 30-year-old Bobby McCarty can make it happen. He wants an early birthday present. Next week is his big day. He'll have a birthday, and how sweet that would be if he could get the win here later on this afternoon. I believe Bobby McCarty getting ready to emerge from that race car. One happy driver. He's made the race. That's the most important thing. But now he wants to win it.
Would be big. He's won a lot of big races in late model stock car racing, but this is one that he's not won yet. So I have a feeling McCarty is definitely a little bit more motivated than usual to try and go get a grandfather clock.
I think you're right. Again, Bobby McCarty has won the qualifying race number 1 for the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. Here he comes, climbing out of his race car. He held off Daniel Silvestri by a little more than a second to get qualifying race 1 victory. Trevor Ward came home in 3rd, and you heard James Pike talk about Casey Kelly getting that very important 10th position. Why is that so important? Only the top 10 advance. So Casey Kelly did. Look at this crowd for a beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is just tremendous.
So many late model stock car fans here ready to see the best of the best in the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series go at it. We've seen so many great moments here happen at Martinsville, and this race stretches about as far back as the concept of late model stock car racing exists. This essentially was an offshoot of what became the Xfinity Series and the NASCAR Whelen Modified Series races that were held for a long time during Cup Series race weekends, and then NASCAR developed those into national and regional touring series, and Martinsville recognized the need for a late model stock car race for these guys. So this is about as old as they come when it comes to late model stock car racing. It's part of why this is such a big race. It's part of why everybody comes here and not anywhere else on this weekend in September to try and claim a grandfather clock. There's a very, very illustrious lore that every single one of these drivers would like to add their name to.
So Bobby McCarty has won the qualifying race number 1. He held off Daniel Silvestri, who came home second. Trevor Ward was third. Peyton Sellers finished up in fourth. Sam Yarborough rounds out the top 5. Cade Brown, he'll advance to the main 200-lap feature. He finished sixth in qualifying race 1. Cress Van Dyke in the 15A. He came home 7th. Carter Langley was 8th. G.R. Waldrop came home 9th. And Casey Kelly, with that final transfer spot, rounds out the top 10. 11th on back through 21st. Will be packing up. They got to practice and qualify on Friday. They got to race a 25-lap qualifying event, but they are done. And the first one was Andrew Grady.
Going home also out of qualifying race number 1 are Jamie Caudell, Logan Clark, Camden Gully, Derek Lancaster, Jimmy Mullins, Justin S. Carroll, that is, Chase Robertson, Chase Ratliff, Tristan Barnes, and Steve Zacharias. So 10 have moved on, 11 have gone home. We get to do it all again here in qualifying race number 2.
That's right. If you like what you just saw, we've got 3 more of those. And one thing that's different this year, you've watched many of these over the years, we don't have a last chance qualifying race. That's done. We're not doing that this year. Just 4 qualifying races, top 10 advance.
In past years, and in that last chance qualifier, it would be maybe 6 or 7 cars fighting for 2 spots. And what that effectively does is it splits up the transfer battle and makes it a little bit tighter, but also I would argue a little bit more competitive even, because those guys racing around 10th, 11th, 12th, like that's a fight. And we saw it a little bit. We saw Cade Brown getting to the back of Chris Van Dyke there on the restart that we had in qualifying race number 1. That's the first time we've seen something like that in these qualifying races. That's not the last time we're going to see that at some stage.
Let's go down trackside and hear from Bobby McCarty.
Hey guys, I'm down here with the number 6 of Bobby McCarty. You just took home the qualifying race win. What's going through your mind right now? Because I saw you look at Daniel Silvestri and say, I'm sorry, man. What was that about?
Before the race, him and I were joking about the track being green, and we was going to see how hard we could get in the corner. And he was giving me a fit, and I was like, well, I need to get in a little deeper. And I tried to get in a little deeper into 3, and I got loose, and I doored him. But that's why I was like, man, that was my fault. I'm sorry. But, Daniel's been spotting for Logan in the Cars Tour. So him and I have become really good friends. And it was all just fun and games, because I told him before the race, we kept joking about getting in the corner as deep as we could. I said, one of us is going to mess up and probably hurt the other one. So it was kind of funny. But no, it was a good race for us. We trended a little free right there after that caution. I don't know if it was a heat cycle or what, but we'll make some adjustments and see if we can keep digging.
So we have 3 more qualifying races to go, and then there's going to be the big feature race. Who are you most worried about, though? So far, you've been the man on top all day.
Myself, more than anything. I know we got a good car. I don't want to adjust us out of the game here. The temperature's going to change before the heat race starts, so we just got to be smart with our decisions right here, and hopefully we can get this thing.
All right, Bobby McCarty. Well, good luck to you as you head to the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. Only one more thing that you have left to get. One more thing, and then you will have won everything here at Martinsville. But good luck to you, and we're going to be having the rest of the heat races up soon.
Thank you.
So there's Bobby McCarty. We just heard his thoughts after winning the qualifying race number 1. I think he sounds pretty confident.
Might be lucky number 7 for him. This is going to be his 7th race in the feature of the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. He's got an impressive record in these qualifying races. He's attempted them 9 times. He's only missed the field twice. So that's the kind of numbers you want to have at Martinsville, and not that there's a direct correlation between your ability to make the feature and your chances of winning the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 directly per se, but the ones who usually give themselves opportunities to win are the ones that we usually end up talking about have a track record in that ballpark. Peyton Sellers has similar numbers, I know. Landon Pembleton, even in his short starts, has a similar sort of track record. So it's going to be fun to see how it all pans out for everybody else. But you want to make a lot of these. If you have the experience of running in the feature, by making it to the feature, you get a little bit more of that knowledge bank to pull back on when you need to draw from it in order to try and win this thing.
So qualifying race number 2 getting ready to take shape here on this half-mile race course in Martinsville, Virginia. Martinsville Speedway. Landon Huffman, Doug Barnes, they're going to make up row number 1. Landon Huffman from Claremont, North Carolina, 27 years of age, and the autos by Nelson Chevrolet. And here is your starting lineup. He's joined alongside Doug Barnes, Doug Barnes, he did a fantastic job in the 2023 Division I NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series point standings. Dylan Harville makes up row number 2 on the inside with Elon, North Carolina's Jacob Borst. Row 3, he's a past winner, Mike Looney. Keep an eye on the Stewart, Virginia car number 87 alongside Justin Hicks.
Inside of row 4 is the newly crowned NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series National Champion for 2023 out of Larry King Law's Langley Speedway. Connor Hall to his outside is a former Young Lions National Champion in the Legends cars from Indian Trail, North Carolina, and familiar to those who have watched Florence Motor Speedway, Zach Miracle. Dustin Rumley, the McLeansville Missile and 6-time track champion of Ace Speedway, starts to the inside of row 5. Starting in 10th out of Easley, South Carolina, it's Magnum Tate. And in 11th, Michael Falk from Mooresville, North Carolina, and Blaine Harrison out of Bastion, Virginia, starts in the 12th position of qualifying race number 2.
Rolling off inside of row number 7, that's where we'll find Katie Hedinger, the winningest female at Hickory Motor Speedway in her Chevrolet. Ryan Matthews from Mechanicsville, Virginia, the 51 car. Row number 8, that'll be Brody Duggins alongside Austin Samaro in car number 99. And then going off from the 9th row, that'll be John Gowen from Scottsville, Virginia, alongside Jamie York.
19th, 20th, and 21st on the grid. Tate Fogelman, who's made starts in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, starts in 19th. 20th out of Kingsport, Tennessee is Colby Higgins. And Jessica Can, a former most popular driver out of the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour, starts shotgun on the field in 21st.
While Casey Kelly didn't win the race, Casey Kelly makes the big race. Let's go trackside.
That transfer spot is really important. And Casey, you were able to finish in the top 10 in heat race number 1, locking yourself into the feature event. What's going through your mind right now and what you have to look forward to?
Oh man, I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this since I was a little kid to race in Martinsville, and I finally got the chance. Me and my twin brother Cody, we grew up around late model racing, and we just love it. Love coming to Martinsville, and this is our first time here, and the maiden show is awesome.
Yeah, that is beginner's luck. A lot of people come here many years and they try to make it in the show and they're not able to do so. Congratulations to you locking it in. What are you thinking about your car though, and is it going to be able to withstand the long race ahead?
Yeah, I think it was very good. I think the longer the race goes, the better I'm going to be.
All right, well, Casey Kelly, extremely confident. That number 16, watch out for him, locks into the show.
So Casey Kelly, you could hear the enthusiasm in his voice. He has made the biggest late model stock car race in the country. He'll be starting this event coming up a little bit later on this afternoon, around 5 o'clock Eastern time. If you're just joining us, this is qualifying race number 2 for the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. We've got 21 drivers ready to do battle in this one as well that we just saw in qualifying race number 1, the number that is. But again, just like in the first one, just the top 10 are going to make this main event. Who's starting in 10th position? Well, right now, that's going to be Magnum Tate from Easley, South Carolina. He knows, hey, I'm in that spot. I just got to hold on to it.
You've got good battles around the transfer spot. You've also got some coming out parties we're going to have at the front of the field. If you can believe it, as much as he's done in a late model stock car, former track champion at Hickory Motor Speedway last year, but Landon Huffman has never attempted even, much less run the feature of the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, and he begins this afternoon pole of qualifying race number 2 in that autos by Nelson, number 22 for Nelson Motorsports. I talked to him earlier. He looked at me and said, I may well be the oldest rookie this race will ever see at 27 years old, but he's been really quick. That program's turned around over the course of the summer. He won the Old North State Nationals in the Cars Tour at Tri-County Speedway a month ago. They've found more speed as of late than they have at any other time this year. So this is a big weekend for Landon to prove himself. Now that he's got top-level equipment, can he get it done in the biggest late model stock car race of the year? And that's just one story of about 4 or 5 that I can see looking at this grid.
That's right. Lots of storylines we're keeping our eyes on. Doug Barnes, who's just alongside of him in car number 88. He was fighting for the Division I NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series National Championship points. came up just a little bit short to another driver that's in this field, Connor Hall from Hampton, Virginia. Connor Hall, he'll be starting this race inside of row number 4. He just wants to maintain where he is in that 77 car. There you see him on the inside, a little further back inside of row number 4. All right, lights have gone off the Toyota pace car. We're getting set for qualifying race number 2. It's Landon Huffman from Claremont, North Carolina. Doug Barnes from Forest Hill, Maryland. Pace car makes that hard left. We're getting set for the second one here this afternoon, the second qualifying race we're talking about. Here they come through turns 3 and 4, and we're getting set to see that green flag emerge, and indeed it is. 21 drivers firing off here in the front stretch. The racing back to turns 1 and 2.
I could not tell if Landon Huffman and Doug Barnes made a little bit of contact in turn 1 there, but Barnes went up the racetrack just a little bit, so he'll slide in line behind Landon Huffman and take second. Meanwhile, look at Dylan Harbaugh to the inside of Jacob Borst of South Boston Speedway. Borst really loose on the exit of turn 4, so he'll drop back to the 4th position. Mike Looney also there, and then look at this battle here right around the transfer spot. Connor Hall, Dustin Rumley, Zach Miracle, Magnum Tate, all door-to-door with one another. As we go a little further back up the racetrack, this is Looney fighting for the 4th spot.
Mike Looney, he's got it done here before. Car number 87 brings it off of corner number 4. He's got 4th position right now. Mike Looney trying to make his way closer to the front. Here comes Connor Hall in the 77 car. He wants to make the main event. He's currently being scored in 7th position, just ahead of Zach Miracle in the 32 car as they race down the back straightaway. Here comes the 88. That's the 88R of Dustin Rumley as they work through turns 3 and 4. As good battles taking shape here along the front straightaway. There is the 10th position. That's Magnum Tate, the 97 car. He's in that final position right now. 3 wide coming off of turn number 2. Looks like one car breaking loose. That was Ryan Matthews. Meanwhile, Connor Hall, he was all over the racetrack as well.
I don't know where you look because we've got drivers left, right, and center on this racetrack. Look at this battle. 3 wide. Ryan Matthews trying to go to the inside of Blaine Harrison and Michael Falk. Meanwhile, Zach Miracle's going to get into the left rear of Connor Hall and try and uproot him in the middle of 1 and 2. And all that did was give Magnum Tate the opportunity to work underneath Dustin Rumley. That would be for the 9th spot if he can get it. And just behind him, this is the battle for the transfer. We've got Blaine Harrison, Michael Falk, Ryan Matthews all in the picture trying to figure this out. And we have only completed 5 of 25 laps in this qualifying race.
3 wide coming through turns 1 and 2. Cars all over the course. You could almost throw a blanket over them. They're that close, but it is indeed a hornet's nest. 3 wide racing back over to turns 3 and 4. Ryan Matthews in the mix in 13th position. There you see the 71, Katie Hettinger, also in this battle as they race down the front stretch. Actually, Matthews backpedaling a little bit. He's now finding himself in 15th position. So we talk about drivers trying to get to the front, others going to the back. And again, 6 laps are on the scoreboard.
Hettinger now beginning to bide her time and work her way up through the field, just a little bit further back of this group here. This is Magnum Tate, who has the final transfer spot at the moment, and Blaine Harrison, who wants it back to Hettinger and company. Hettinger currently running in the 14th position on the racetrack, so work to do for the driver, Michigan native, if she wants to make her way into the feature, but a lot of time to make that happen as we go back up towards the front. Mike Looney trying to get around Dylan Harville and Will, so Looney now goes to 3rd, Harville back to 4th, trying to hold off Jacob Borst, who would like to not be in the 5th position for too much longer, it looks like.
So Mike Looney, he's going the right direction in the 87 car. There's the 33, Dylan Harville, right now in position number 4, just ahead of Jacob Borst in that 25 car. Looking on is Justin Hicks, that white and black 61, as they work back over into turns 1 and 2. They are in relatively good condition right now. No real danger of not making the main event unless something happens. If a car breaks loose, they turn around. Anything could happen, but right now they're relatively safe as they battle coming off of turns 3 and 4. And James, this is a good time to talk about, if you're right up near the front, great. I'm learning what I have underneath of me on race day. What adjustments do I need to make as I get set for the big race coming up later on?
There's not as much pressure, I think, especially now that this field is strung out a little bit. If you're running in 3rd, 4th, 5th, yes, maybe you'd like to get another spot. You might like the track position off the starting grid, because if you get one spot, that's essentially 4 spots on the feature grid. So there's certainly some value to it, but you don't necessarily have the pressure to try and race your way in outright right off the top, which you would have if you were a little bit further back in the field. So these drivers, Harville, Borst, Hicks, they've got time before they really need to make any moves, I think. because you're not really all that close to moving your barns or huffing either. So not really much pressure to try and go run up to the front. Just again, sort of ride around, learn what you've got, especially in the long run, because we'll probably have some of those in the feature, and that information can be useful to the drivers, the teams, the crew chiefs. They can make a few adjustments based on what they have.
Dylan Harville, that black 33 car, being scored in 4th position from Kernersville, North Carolina. A winner at Ace Speedway. Was fast on Friday, showing what he can do here on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. He is holding off the 25 of Jacob Borst. They're inside the top 5 as they work down the back straightaway over into corners 3 and 4. We're halfway home. 13 of the 25 laps have been completed. There's Magnum Tate, right side of your screen. He is in the final transfer spot in 10th position, but Blaine Harrison, he's looking on. Blaine takes him back to 1 and 2.
Blaine, one of the youngest competitors in the field outright here in the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 in 2023, looking to try and make the feature race here at the short track. What a big accomplishment that would be. It is his debut attempt at a ValleyStar Credit Union 300, but he's got company to the inside. Look at that big move there for the 97, and Harrison is going to spin in turn 2.
Not the way you want to do it. Blaine Harrison was in the 11th position. We see a little fire on the right side of that race car as he tries to refire it here after it shut off as he went for a spin down in turns 1 and 2. He was battling Magnum Tate for that 10th position, the final transfer spot, and unfortunately that'll put us under our very first caution flag of the afternoon. It flies here at lap number 15, so very similar to our first qualifying race. We're going to get a caution, and it'll be a 10-lap shootout to get the checkered flag.
What's old again is new again. However, look at the right front of Harrison's car. Looks like when he bounced off the curb in turn 2, he picked up some damage to his Ford Mustang, so he'll come down pit road and bring that machine to the attention of his crew just to try and get, if anything, get that fender off of the tire and make sure that there's not a tire rub there. At this point, that's your biggest concern, I think, if you're Harrison, because aerodynamics matter a little bit as we take a look and see what happened here. They matter a little bit, but not all that much compared to some other places we go, Brian.
Exactly. Oh, a little contact just behind them. I'm not sure if that was Michael Falk or Bertie Duggins. I'll have to take a look at the replay again. But nevertheless, the battle was on for the 10th position. There you see Blaine Harrison. He was in 11th. He was going to work on Magnum Tate for that 10th spot. That car broke loose. Insult to injury. He gets hit again after going for the spin. So the Virginia driver, Blaine Harrison, who competes at Lonesome Pine Raceway, is in the pits. Not the way he wanted to do this event, because he knew he had a shot at it. He could smell that 10th spot. He was going after it, and it could have just went away.
Potentially. The flip side of this is now that we have a yellow, we saw how nutty some of the racing was right around 10th at the start of this race, and now you have 10 laps to go, and you bring the field all that together. They were 3 wide back there on lap, 2, 3, 4? So if that's how they were going to race at the beginning of this qualifying race, I do and don't want to imagine what we're going to see here with 10 laps to go, because I can only believe that it's going to get even crazier back there. And we've seen 1 yellow in this qualifying race. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a few more.
The intensity meter, well, it's ratcheting up. It's going to get a little bit higher here as we continue on this beautiful Sunday afternoon at Martinsville Speedway in Martinsville, Virginia, the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. We're talking about some NASCAR late model stock car racing, the biggest NASCAR late model stock car race in the country. 15 laps have been completed in qualifying race number 2. It'll be 10 more to go as we go after it here this afternoon. There's Magnum Tate, that 97 car. He's in the final transfer spot. But behind him, that's where we'll find another 97 car, Michael Falk. He's hungry. He wants to go after it. As the lights have gone off the pace car, that means 1 more lap. We're going back after it. 15 in the books, 10 more to go. This is just like your normal Saturday night shootout for late model stock car racing, even though normally they compete at least 50 to 100 laps. But this is like a 10-lap shootout to get it done.
Yeah, you know, you've seen something like that a few times around in the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series. As the pace car will come off of pit road, and the field will come under the purview of our flagman for this afternoon, Brandon Willard, who will get set to unfurl the green flag back over the field. We're underway with 10 laps to go in qualifying race number 2.
1 car, not a good start for Zach Miracle. That backed up the entire field. He gets it back going again. They're running 3 wide going up the racetrack. That was Ryan Matthews in the 51 car. He's backpedaling. Close closer to the front. The battle's on. Jacob Borst as they work over in turns 1 and 2. We got problems here on the racetrack. We stay under the green flag for the moment. Now we'll see the caution flag come out. One car with big-time problems over there in turns 3 and 4. Also, a second car has stopped. There we see the 71, Katie Hedinger. She has problems with her Chevrolet. Lots of damage to the front of that race car. She will continue on, but James, early on, caution flag number 2.
So Hedinger, one of the cars, and you see just that quick glimpse on your screen is enough to know that it was Blaine Harrison. That's the other car that stopped over on the front stretch with a little bit more damage to the right front than he had after the first yellow flag. But Hedinger, you see the right front caved in, and the left rear in particular, somebody's gotten into her back there, and someone has made contact entering turn 3. There were about 4 or 5 different cars that were bouncing off of each other there.
Take a look at the FloRacing replay as they were battling further back in the pack as we watch them race back over to turns 3 and 4. And we see the field just stacking up. And it was almost like a chain reaction deal. Some drivers slowed down ahead of them and then, of course, get on the binders, but couldn't get on the brakes quick enough. So Katie Hedinger, as well as Blaine Harrison, they were running a little further back in the pack, 17th and 18th positions respectively. But this is just insult to injury for Blaine Harrison. Look at the damage. You talked about it earlier. He did have problems with the front of that Ford Mustang, but now he's got even bigger problems as it's pushed in there. The New River Economy Drug race car. Big-time problems for Blaine Harrison, who was racing for that 10th position early on, just a few laps back. But now it looks like his day could be done as that car continues to set here on the front stretch.
There was some damage to the right front of his machine after that first yellow. There's a lot more damage to the right front there. When it's so caved in that you've got the front bumper essentially dragging on the racetrack, that's in a short qualifying race like this. You know, if this were the feature, you might have time to go down pit road, saw that off, and get that dealt with and be okay. Because, as we said under that last show, you don't necessarily need to worry about aerodynamics here. It is more about the power you have under the hood than anything else at Martinsville Speedway. But in a situation like this where you don't have time, unfortunately, that's going to be curtains. Now, the good news for Blaine is that he'll have plenty more opportunities as a young race car driver to come back and try and make this race. But this is not how he wanted his ValleyStar Credit Union 300 debut to come.
Especially when he was so close to getting in. So I know he and his team will be talking about it. We saw him get out of that race car. He's going to get checked out just to make sure everything's okay. But I'm certain, dejected, upset that he's had this problem here this afternoon. And we talked about it during the opening laps here. These race cars may not look quite as beautiful by the time this race ends. And there we know we've got damage to Katie Hedinger as well as Blaine Harrison. Enough damage to Blaine Harrison that he will not finish this event here at lap number 16. So under the caution flag for the second time this afternoon, there's your race leader, Landon Huffman. Landon Huffman started this event on the pole position for qualifying race number 2. That's where he runs. There's your second place car. That's Doug Barnes. What a year he's had. Doug Barnes, we've been watching him. We've been talking about that Maryland driver. He's made a lot of attention, a lot of NASCAR news, just because he's won so many races in that Barnes paving race entry. Came up a little bit short for the NASCAR National Division I Points Championship, but you got to think that young man, he's got a long ways to go. A long future ahead of him, I should say.
Right. No, he's one of the most popular drivers in late model stock car racing, and rightfully so. He's a 2-time track champion at Dominion Raceway up in Spotsylvania, Virginia, another NASCAR home, or rather roots track, I suppose, and brought out the chrome wheels as well, I noticed. He mentioned to me that he might try and chrome out the whole car, but just didn't quite have the time to get that done between the locked-in 150 at Florence Motor Speedway a few weeks ago, which set the pole sitter for the South Carolina 400, Sam Yarbrough, who's going to be in our feature a little bit later. He was the winner of that race. We'll see him then, too. Doug also won earlier this year at Florence Motor Speedway, won the Icebreaker, which traditionally kicks off the late model stock car series right around the second weekend of February. So Doug has won plenty of races, done plenty of things, and is someone we are going to have to watch for. We talk about one of the favorites to win this race. He certainly has to be on the list, along with our current leader, Landon Huffman.
Cleanup all but complete here this afternoon at Martinsville Speedway. 2 caution flags in qualifying race number 2. That's a little different than qualifying race number 1. We just had 1 yellow flag. But I don't think we're done seeing the cautions, because we know that these drivers are hungry. They want to make that main feature, and to do that, you've got to finish inside the top 10. Landon Huffman trying to make it happen here this afternoon over Doug Barnes, who right now rides along in second. And we've got your past winner, car number 87. There he is, Mike Looney. He picked up the checkered flag here back in 2016 to get the grandfather clock. One of 4 drivers that are attempting to make the 2023 edition. Brandon Willard has that yellow flag rolled up, letting the drivers know that in one more lap, we're going to turn this field loose and go back after it here this afternoon, as we'll resume the event at lap number 16. Now, unlike the main feature, caution laps will not count in our qualifying races, so that's why you're seeing the lap counter not advancing. That's because we're not counting them. We'll have 25 green flag laps to set the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. The main feature, that's the 200-lap race, coming up later this afternoon. If you're just joining us, around 5 o'clock Eastern Time here in the beautiful Commonwealth of Virginia. Lights off the pace car, making the hard left. The field forming now in turns 3 and 4. It's Landon Huffman alongside Doug Barnes, Mike Looney, Jacob Borst on row number 2. Here they come out of turn number 4. We're going to see that green flag come back out once more.
A little bit of shuffling further back in the field. I saw right around Justin Hicks, the field back up just a hair, but it's door to door to door amongst just about everybody in the field. A little bit cleaner restart than we saw the last time around, but inevitably that will change. When you're racing for a spot in the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, you have to get up on the wheel. You see Landon Huffman and Doug Barnes clear the rest of the field, so that leaves Looney and Harville fighting for the 3rd position, and then Jacob Borst just behind them into the outside of Plainsville Missile. Speedway track champion Dustin Rumley looking for a spot in the top 5 too.
Stacked up for about 5th on back as we watch the 25 of Jacob Borst go down to the inside. He's trying to make the advance. We've got one car way up the racetrack coming up through turns 3 and 4, getting out of shape. That'll make them 3 wide as they come by the start-finish line. Backpedaling, it's happening right now as drivers trying to advance inside the top 10. That might have been Brody Duggins, you're saying here, as we got trouble on the racetrack. Caution flag number 3. Looking around the speedway, James, I'm not sure exactly. May have debris, not sure, but run to the caution flag.
3rd yellow flag of qualifying race number 2 here at Martinsville. And I get this feeling, Brian, that we're waiting for the powder keg to explode. If anything, I honestly thought that restart was a little bit tamer than I expected, but I imagine we're going to have something as a good eye, Brian. You said that there might be debris. That pretty clearly stands out as debris to me in the middle of the front straightaway there.
That's right. So debris puts us under our 3rd caution flag of the afternoon. It flies here at lap number 18. So what do we say in racing? Cautions breed cautions.
That's terrifying that we can just speak at the same time, you know. Now, I guess, and we saw a little bit of it in qualifying race number 1, and it's a term that we use traditionally more at restrictor plate tracks, but the idea of co-opetition. We saw that a little bit with Bobby McCarty and Daniel Silvestri as we take a look at the replay here. So that was Brody Duggins that went way up the racetrack there. You see on the left-hand portion of your screen, and then the debris comes off of the side of
the 99 car?
One of Colby Higgins, I think Colby Higgins, or Austin Smith, one of the two. We have 2 99s in this field, so but clearly damaged there, and
it's
it would
like
be
Higgins.
Higgins in the 99A. So
he's got to the side of somebody.
Yeah,
the right side.
Who needs a right side door? So you can go get a body panel and get that all fixed up. If you make the feature, that's not hard to fix, but you have to make the feature first. It sounds so basic, so elementary, so obvious, but this is the kind of race, the kind of setup where I think to a large degree you as a driver just have to focus on what's ahead of you. And even if you're up in the front of this field, you know, you're Landon Huffman, Doug Barnes, Mike Looney, yes, you'd love to win the feature later, but you got to make sure you make it through the qualifying races first to be okay for 200 laps later.
So the Chevrolet Camaro, talking about the 99A Colby Higgins from Kingsport, Tennessee, having some problems. The right side of that car is used up. It put us under the yellow flag because of debris on the raceway, and we are now giving the indication we're going green flag racing at about a half a lap from now. 18 have been completed. We're getting ready to wind this one up here in just a matter of a few laps. We see it's Landon Huffman at the front of the field. He's led the majority of this race. Doug Barnes to his right elbow as they come through turns 3 and 4, and we're set to get the race restart. We're back under the green flag at Martinsville Speedway. The entire field gets going. little bumping and grinding in the middle of the pack as some cars get together. But right now, everybody races off to turns 1 and 2, side by side through the field.
The last thing you want to do is be the first car that gets sent up to the outside lane. You could lose 2, 3, 4, 5 spots. You know how important the inside is here as they all go crazy there in the back portion of your screen. But everybody here that you see on your screen now, all in a position to try and make this, as we've got trouble a little bit further back. Zach Miracle has stuffed it in the fence. Brody Duggins was involved in one more car pinned up on the outside retaining wall on the exit of turn 4.
4 cars get knotted up coming off of turn number 4. At least 1, maybe 2 badly damaged as they continue on. Looks like the 90 will continue. That's John Gowen. He caught a piece of that action of the 90 car. There's your 08 race car. That may be Brody Duggins with some issues. That race car, that Chevrolet, is pushed up as Duggins has some problems here on the 08.
Jamie York is the other car that we believe has been involved in this incident. We'll get a good look at the replay here in a few moments and see what happens. But just wild, wild stuff. And again, you're racing for that 10th and final spot. You're fighting for everything. You end up with situations like this when there's this much on the line. So there's a big block from Zach Miracle that starts all this, and he got the favor repaid, and then it was very much a chain reaction from that point on. And it was actually Ryan Matthews who got into, I believe, Austin Samaro, who then bounced up the racetrack and caused all the chaos that we saw out of turn 4.
At least 4 cars caught a piece of that, and they were battling for, guess what, the 10th position, because Zach Miracle in the 32 car was in 10th. He's not there anymore. He's bringing that car down pit lane. I'm sure one dejected, upset race car driver as he brings it down to the attention of his crew. So it was Zach Miracle and others behind him going after it. John Gowen was being scored in 12th position. He was involved in that incident, and that puts us under the yellow flag for the 4th time here this afternoon on lap number 18 here at Martinsville Speedway.
You see the crew of Zach Miracle's machine, the Miracle Dental Chevrolet, going to work on the rear end of that car. I saw it bobble a little bit down pit road. I'm not sure whether or not the rear end might have been knocked out of alignment in that incident with the way they made contact and as close as they were together in the middle of 3 and 4. That wouldn't shock me, but everybody on that team going to try and go to work to salvage whatever they can. It's not necessarily curtains outright for his opportunity to make the top 10, but you definitely need to put something together and work hard under this yellow flag just to make sure that you're back out rolling on the grid by the time these cars begin to move. They've got some time as they clean up the incident on the exit of turn 4, but not a lot of time to get the job done if you want to get Zach Miracle back out of the racetrack.
And you and I were chatting. You shared with me that he was the National Young Lions champ in 2019. So certainly has some success under his belt and trying to get into the big ValleyStar Credit Union 300 late model stock car race. And he was inside the top 10. He was in position number 10. So that has to make it all the more upsetting for him. But we talked about it earlier. The 10th position, you're pretty much a bullseye that everybody's going after, and they're chasing it as we see the crew members looking that car over. And there's no harm, no foul as we're under the caution flag. You're not advancing lap count, so you're not losing any time. And as a matter of fact, the field is actually stopped over in turns 3 and 4 to allow the cleanup to take place here on the front stretch. Let's go trackside to Jacqueline Drake.
Might be a bit of a miracle here for the 32 of Zach Miracle. Right now, it just looks like cosmetic damage on this car. He has some fender damage on the left side, and then the rear bumper, they were working on it a little bit with the hammer underneath. But what I thought might be a rear end issue actually doesn't seem that they're going to be having that. So again, just working on the cosmetics just a little bit so he doesn't drag the ground. They check the tire pressures. Looks like they're going to be able to send him back out to rejoin this field.
Thank you, Jacqueline Drake, down on pit lane, giving us the reports here about Zach Miracle as the crew continues to go to work on that car. We talked about it. You documented 4 drivers involved in this one. We still have 2 cars. There they set on pit road as we speak. Brody Duggins, the other, with the hood being up on that 08 car. Unfortunate for Jamie York in the 1A. It's on the tow truck, so his afternoon is done. And, of course, we talked about the other driver involved in that, John Gowen, in car number 90. So 4 drivers with problems right around the middle of the pack as we had 21 drivers start this race. There won't be 21 to finish this event as we've got just 18 laps on the board. Going to get a restart here with about 7 to go to wrap this one up.
7 laps to go. That just, it feels like it's going to be so long between 7 and the end. There's so much racing left, and there's so little racing left to it. Sort of depends on how you view it, but plenty of opportunities for these drivers that aren't in the top 10 to get up there, plenty of opportunities for the drivers currently in the top 10 to fall out, and plenty of drivers from 11th on back that I know are going to be aggressive to try and get those spots. So there are plenty of twists and turns in the second qualifying race, which all of a sudden is broken out into a very sort of wild, complex tale that we didn't necessarily have in qualifying race number 1. We had the one yellow in the middle, and then they were able to go green to the end. But this one, a very, very different sort of race. And just a passing thought here, if you're in qualifying race number 3 in particular, and you know that they tell people to grid up and be ready to go as soon as this race is over. If you run any sort of short track program, you know how they like to keep the races going as a session. Does all of this downtime maybe change the way you think about things a bit?
It could. Let's go get the thoughts of King, North Carolina's Brody Duggins.
Standing trackside here with the number 08 of Brody Duggins, who was just involved in that incident. Walk me through exactly what happened there.
Yeah, we just got in the corner just a little too loose, and that guy spun that other guy out, and then there was just nowhere to go.
You had a really strong effort there, quite a bit of damage on the nose of that car. But so far, though, did you enjoy being able to come and race here at Martinsville Speedway?
Yeah, it's my first time. I'm 14 years old. I'm just excited to be here. Good luck to everybody else.
That was Brody Duggins, dejected after that qualifying race, but first timer here and did a great job. He was in the transfer spot before that last caution.
Watching the replay here, thank you, Jacqueline Drake, down on pit lane. But Brody Duggins, pretty incredible in my opinion. 14 years of age, just a young man who doesn't have his driver's license yet, and he's going fast on a Sunday afternoon in Martinsville, Virginia. Pretty cool stuff, but of course he doesn't feel that great about it right now because he knows he's dejected, upset that he's not going to make the main feature. Brody Duggins was running in 14th position at the time of that incident, down on pit lane, talking it over with family and friends as his day has come to a close here. Back under the yellow flag as cleanup is just about wrapped up here this afternoon, so it shouldn't be too much longer, and we're going to go back after it here today. There's your race leader. It continues to be the 22, the Claremont, North Carolina competitor, that being Landon Huffman in the Napa Chevrolet Camaro as he's getting ready to go back after it with the 88 of Doug Barnes in tow. Doug right now rides in P2. So again, early, well, I'll say early, we're actually late into this race, and it's getting ready to wrap up. And I said early for a moment laughing because we may not be done with the caution flags yet.
May not. That's I think anyone out here in the stands at Martinsville or watching, wherever they may be on FloRacing, your guess is truly as good as ours as to whether or not we're going green to the end of qualifying race number 2, or if we get another caution. It all, I think, pivots upon how these drivers right around the transfer spot go. That, to me, will determine everything. I think we will see the front drivers largely be okay. They may try and jockey for position a little bit, but they're all just trying to figure things out for the future. They largely know they're going to be there, barring the unexpected. But you get around 10th, and you get around Magnum Tate, Michael Falk, Wilson Samaro, company all around there. Who knows what to expect? Because you got varying levels of experience, varying levels of desire, I think. Yeah, everybody wants to try and make this feature, but it's how hard are you willing to race? What are you willing to do to make the ValleyStar Credit Union 300? Those degrees, we don't really know.
We're getting ready to find out. Again, right now, the final transfer spot, we'll take you through that here in a bit, that being, we believe, Michael Falk. But we are, again, under the caution flag. Shouldn't be too much longer as NASCAR looks over the racetrack to make sure everything's in tip-top shape before we go back under the green flag for the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 qualifying race number 2. Race 1 is done. We've got race 2 almost completed, and we'll have 2 more following this as we set the starting lineup for the big one coming up here in just a bit. So there is the 99 that we're seeing on the screen right now, Austin Samaro, as we got a couple of 99 cars, also Colby Higgins out there as well. That's the fun about this race, is when you have like 82 drivers show up, you're going to have some of the same numbers. Now, technically, they're not the same number. We might have a 99A and a 99B, but nevertheless, it just makes it fun because there's a battle everywhere you look around the racetrack.
You could argue that there's a battle within this race to be the best 99, much less make the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, and that is your battle for top 99 in qualifying race number 2 right there on your screen. Austin Samaro versus Colby Higgins, who are both going to be right around that transfer spot when we get back going. That's going to be a fun one to watch, as will everybody else back there. Also worth noting is a bit just off screen here, but Ryan Matthews, who's gone up to the high line like 3 or 4 times, not out of it yet. Still has a chance, as does pretty much everybody else in this field.
That's right, Ryan Matthews, the 51 car. He'll be fighting for it from Mechanicsville, Virginia. He's had the aid of a few caution flags to help get this field bunched back up, bumper to bumper, as we get set to go back after it here on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Here they come through turns 3 and 4. Landon Huffman, Doug Barnes, one more time. They'll see the green flag, and qualifying race number 2 is back underway. We're already going 3 wide, 1 car coming off the ground. Connor Hall goes for a loop down at turns 1 and 2. Big time problems here on the start.
That started before they even got, it was almost the choose cone down the front straightaway where that started. But Connor Hall, the newly crowned NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series national champion, ends up in trouble, and I believe Magnum Tate is the one you see on your screens that got into him and definitely has some damage to the right front of that machine. Not the way either of them wanted this to go, but again, it was all hard racing. They were 3 wide as soon as they crossed the start-finish line to begin racing. They told the drivers in the meeting this morning, don't try and pass anybody until you get past the start-finish line, but I mean the moment they got past it, they were 3 wide trying to run for spots and get that inside position into turn 1, which we know here at Martinsville is critical with any series that races here, but especially with this late model group because they don't have as much power and they end up working a little bit smaller on this racetrack.
Taking a look at the FloRacing replay on the inside lane, Connor Hall. There you see Magnum Tate went down 3 wide. He and Connor got together. The Magnum Tate car came off the ground, and that's when the 77B Connor Hall goes around in turn number 1. Katie Hedinger in the 71 car also caught a piece of that action. And look at that, James. That car went airborne here on the front stretch right at the end of the 800-foot stretch going down to turn number 1. The entire left side sheet metal coming off the Connor Hall car. It was just ripped off, and Katie Hedinger, a victim of circumstance, wrong place at the wrong time. And we're going to take a look at one more replay here as we get set to see the green flag come out. Connor Hall restarted this event in about 7th spot on the inside lane, and you got to give a tip of the cap to Ryan Matthews. He does some heads-up driving, keeping the 51 car going in the right direction, but Katie Hedinger, again, not where she wanted to be, as Connor Hall's now down on pit road.
77 machine going to try and patch that up as best they can and find whatever spare pieces of sheet metal to constitute a door that they can go grab and get on that car and get it back out on the racetrack. Meanwhile, if I'm Magnum Tate's team, I would have major concerns about that right front, whether or not the suspension on that corner of their machine is okay, because that was a solid foot or two that corner of the car came up off the ground.
Jacqueline, what you got for us?
Down here in the pits of the number 97, Magnum Tate, who we saw that was just involved in that incident. The team is working diligently right now to try to repair the nose on that 97 using a couple of bungee cords to hold it up as it was laying on the ground. He has quite a bit of damage to that radiator and all of the ductwork that can affect the braking on this car. Going to try to get him sent back out before they go green.
So the scoreboard shows 18 laps being completed here in this one. We had just taken the green flag to restart this race, and we're quickly back up to the yellow flag.
Yeah, I don't know if you all heard it on the ambient mics there that Jacqueline had, but I heard the crew scream, "We've got 1 to go, guys!" So, but they know the sense of urgency they have to have, and I'm not sure if Magnum Tate's going to be able to beat the pace car. Doesn't look like he will, so going to get held there at the end of pit road. They tried to get him out before the pace car, but just didn't have the time, and that could be curtains on Magnum Tate's opportunity to try and make the 2023 ValleyStar Credit Union 300.
Magnum from Easley, South Carolina will rejoin at the rear of the field as Connor Hall back down pit road in the 77 car. Connor Hall, the whole left side being shredded off of that race car. The driver from Hampton, Virginia, we talked about just being crowned the NASCAR Division I National Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series champion, as he'll be coming back out, I believe, onto the racing surface. So unfortunate for Connor Hall. He was right where he needed to be. Started the race in 7th, was in 7th. Now we're going to have less than 7 laps to go, and he's going to have to pass a ton of race cars to make it inside the top 10 as we get set for a race restart. So 5 caution flags in qualifying race number 2. Are we done with the yellows? We don't know. We're ready to find out as we go back after it one more time. So Landon Huffman has to hit his marks and hit them just right one more time. And that's where we've seen a lot of issues here on these restarts as drivers have had problems either spinning the wheels or getting into one another. Here we go. Green flag is back out. We're back after it for the ValleyStar Credit Union 300.
Big move there down to the bottom. I saw Justin Hicks trying to work to the inside of Jacob Borston. Thought better of it. Decided to tuck back in line. So it's 2 by 2 by 2. Save for Mike Looney, who's got sole possession of the 3rd spot just ahead of Dylan Harville. Meanwhile, nice fight there from Doug Barnes to stay to the outside quarter panel of Landon Huffman for the qualifying race lead.
And Doug Barnes will get credit with leading lap number 20. So Doug Barnes hanging in tough there on the outside lane. Mike Looney, that white 87 car, looking on in position number 3. We're still side by side for the catbird seat, racing back to 3 and 4. The preferred way, the fast way around this 11-degree bank course. That's where we'll find the 22 of Landon Huffman. He'll lead lap number 21. 4 more circuits to go here this afternoon, and we're still side by side for the top spot. Here they race down the backstretch. One more time, it's Mike Looney on the inside, Doug Barnes to his right elbow.
Landon Huffman on the bottom, Doug Barnes on top. Everybody else behind them has settled out a little bit. The next 3 cars in line, Mike Looney, Jacob Borst, Justin Hicks, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. They're just watching this and just seeing how it's going to pan out. As you can't forget about the transfer battle either coming up. It's going to be very, very nutty as one car goes around the 97A machine.
Michael Falk.
Michael Falk has gone around, and the yellow flag has come out for the 6th time in qualifying race number 2.
And Michael Falk was in position number 8. He was right where he needed to be to make the top 10. And that all goes away as we see the yellow flag fly for the 6th time here this afternoon, lap number 22. So it'll be a 3-lap shootout. And let's take a look at the FloRacing replay. You see the 97A and contact just behind him, that being Austin Samaro. They get together as they were battling for the 7th position. The 97A goes for a 360 and grabs a gear, continues on. But nevertheless, wow, that's not what he wanted to see.
It definitely is not. However, the flip side of this, look who snuck past that wreck. 2 names that stuck out to me. Ryan Matthews, did we not see him earlier in this qualifying race get punted to the outside maybe 3 or 4 times? And he's now currently scored in the 10th position as you get a good look to the heavy right front damage on Austin Samaro's machine. And then Zach Miracle, who was just involved in that incident a few cautions ago, he's got a shot at this. He's only 2 spots back of Ryan Matthews for that last transfer spot. So I'd almost venture to say anything's possible at this point. But Matthews in particular, I feel like he's lived 1,000 lives in this one race, and to still have an opportunity to make the feature after everything he's gone through, it's a tremendous testament to the fight that crew's had just to be in a position where they even have a chance when I think a lot of other drivers would call it curtains a long, long time ago.
Ryan Matthews right now being scored at 8th. Now, of course, that could change while the choose cone come out here in just a bit. So we'll be resetting the field. That's the V that's painted just past the start-finish line. Drivers, just like in the top NASCAR National Touring Series, elect to go to the inside of that V or the outside. But Ryan Matthews right now in 8th position. And he was as far back as 15th. So he has passed a ton of race cars, has had a lot of fight in this one. And there you see the choose zone. Drivers going inside or outside, depending on what their strategy is. And there is Ryan Matthews, the Mechanicsville, Virginia competitor. Races at Larry King Law's Langley Speedway, trying to make the ValleyStar Credit Union 300.
Matthews might be the most prolific driver in iRacing in this field. He will have had plenty of experience in the new late model at the virtual Martinsville Speedway, I imagine. So it's a question of how much of that will translate to real life. Big question here to answer over the course of the next handful of laps to close out qualifying race number 2 as Doug Barnes and Landon Huffman lead them back to green.
Green flag is out. 3 laps to go. Who is going to make the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. Doug Barnes on the inside. He had credit for leading the race when the caution came out. He is in the top spot right now as they race down the backstretch over to turns 3 and 4. Huffman tucked up on the high side. Here comes Mike Looney. He puts the nose of the car on the inside as they're racing incredibly 3 wide behind them. Great action, but right now it's Doug Barnes here at lap 23.
Doug Barnes in control of this. Then Landon Huffman. Here's Mike Looney looking to the inside of the AutosByNelson.com Chevrolet. Down into turn 3 they go, and Looney, the 2006 champion of this race, looking for second in qualifying race number 2. Meanwhile, to the right side of your screen, you see the battle for the transfer spot with Ryan Matthews and company.
Guess who's back in? Connor Hall. We thought he might be out. Not right now. He is in position number 10. White flag is in the air the final time around. It's Doug Barnes who started this race in position number 2. He leads the field coming off of turns 3 and 4. Checkers are in the air. We have wrapped up qualifying race number 2, and Doug Barnes in the 88 car from Forest Hill, Maryland. He'll win the second event.
How about the fight of a national champion? Connor Hall was sideways, was spun out in turn number 1. He lost pretty much all of the door on the race car, and he fights back to make the top 10 and is the final driver to transfer out of qualifying race number 2. You want to talk about fight back, you want to talk about experience, you want to talk about never quitting. That might be the most perfect picture we're going to get all day, because there is no door on that left-hand side, no doubt.
It's gone. It's gone, and they have done the best they can to get it patched up. As Connor Hall from Hampton, Virginia, the 26-year-old driver who currently leads the late model championship points in Hampton, Virginia. He's won 14 of the 17 late model races this year, has just simply been on fire and could not do anything wrong. As a matter of fact, in all the races he's competed at in the late models stock car competition this year across the country, he's got 18 wins. Again, we talked about it. He is your Division I national champion, but that driver right there, the 88 car, who Connor ironically battled for the Division I championship, we're talking about the 88 race car, Doug Barnes. He'll win qualifying race number 2 as he has locked himself inside the top 10, and he has won this event with Connor Hall getting the final transfer spot. So now, qualifying race 2 is done, and we're getting set for the third one.
Right, yeah, there's now, of course, the flip side of this is that Connor Hall has a lot of work to do to get that car patched up between now and the feature, but I think you'd rather have that work to do because you qualified to race in the feature than to have to fix that up at the top, as there's a big-time fight here in the infield.
Extracurricular activities as drivers and teams not happy with one another. This is sometimes, emotions run high. We get excited in racing. You put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get these cars prepared. You travel a long ways to be at the racetrack, and sometimes you're just not happy as the things take place on the racetrack. You may have a discussion, and sometimes, well, that may escalate just a little bit.
See John going right at the center of that. He was one of the drivers that ended up spun around in turn 4, so...
And, of course, our monitor has gone blank, so we'll get you the top 10 here in a matter of moments as soon as we're able to get that from NASCAR. But nevertheless, not happy with one another as they talk down in the pit area. And, of course, NASCAR down there trying to help with matters. But, it can be difficult when, again, we're talking about 82 drivers vying for 40 spots in this race.
I see Matthew Dillner from FloRacing with the camera there to capture everything. I also see a very torn T-shirt there. That there was a collar on that once upon a time, I think.
And he just says, you know what, I'm just going to take it off. It's going to go away.
It's seasonably warm here at Martinsville, more so than you would think, and more so than it would be in the night. So if this were the feature, I don't know if you're as inclined, but been about 65 degrees pretty much all day, and even though we've got a little bit of cloud cover, the weather really is very, very spectacular today. I could not ask for better weather here at Martinsville for the 38th annual ValleyStar Credit Union 300.
So we may be a day late thanks to Tropical Storm Ophelia, but it's worth the wait, as you just mentioned, because of the conditions right now. So comfortable here on a beautiful Sunday afternoon in southwestern Virginia, Martinsville Speedway. That is the location that you're watching live flag-to-flag coverage of the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. We've completed half of our qualifying races for this afternoon to set the starting lineup for the big 200-lap feature. 2 down, 2 to go. And these fans, they have shown up. They've been here all weekend long. Campers started arriving early this week. Of course, the trucks began bringing in the race cars on Thursday evening. We practiced and qualified Friday afternoon and Friday night under the lights. And we're getting set to go after it here in qualifying race number 3. As we get set, there you see Brendan Butterbean Queen, the 03 race car. And let's take a look at the starting lineup. Carson Wappel, he's done big things in the Cars Tour. Current point standings leader in car number 8. He'll lead inside row number 1. Brendan Queen from Chesapeake, Virginia, 3-time late model champion in Hampton, Virginia. Also P2 in cars point standings so far this year. Row 2 from Trinity, Jared Beyer. On the inside, Matt Cox in the 51 car. He rolls off in 4th position. Rolling off inside of row 3, that'll be William Swalich in the 43 car, while Hayden Honeycutt from Aledo, Texas, he'll roll off outside row 3.
Kyle Dudley's a former track champion at Martinsville Speedway. He starts in the 7th position here in qualifying race number 3. To his outside, Chase Dixon out of Abingdon, Virginia. Chase Burrow, the defending Cars Tour Rookie of the Year, starts in 9th. John Kosick out of Winston-Salem will roll off in 10th. Mason Diaz, winner of the Throwback 225 at Hickory for the Cars Tour in July, will start in 11th alongside Hickory, North Carolina's Brad Housewright in 12th.
Taking a look at the rest of the starting lineup. Row 7, Connor Jones from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Jason Myers from Hurt, Virginia. He starts in position number 14. Ronnie Bassett from Winston-Salem. He'll roll off inside row 8 with Kenny Forbes to his right elbow in the 07. We've got Carl Budzetsky. He'll start inside of row number 9 in the 7B car with Thomas Scott rolling off outside row 9.
Mike Chambers from Timberlake, North Carolina starts in the 19th position. Chris Horton from South Mills, North Carolina starts in 20th. And Zachary Dabbs out of Orangeville, North Carolina completes our 21-car field for qualifying race number 3. And as I was reviewing these earlier this morning, Brian White, this in my mind is the most stacked of all of the qualifying races, because you've got heavy hitters everywhere in the top 10 and even spilling out outside of the top 10. So much to talk about in qualifying race number 3.
Let's go and hear the thoughts from Doug Barnes.
Winner of qualifying race number 2, right beside me we have the number 88, Doug Barnes Jr. taking home the win in that qualifying race. You're racing really hard with Landon though, but how confident do you feel about your car going into the feature?
Well, honestly, I feel really good because I picked up on how airtight these things get. I felt like I had a car for Landon, but anytime I get within 2 car lengths, it would just push like crazy. And I was honestly content with second, then we just kept having cautions. I was getting through the gears a little bit better, and I knew if I could roll through 1 and 2 well, I might have a shot at it. And then I lucked out. The caution came out when I beat him to the line, but that was, for as stressful as these races are, I was really comfortable. And I respect him, I respect Mike, I respect Jacob, and I had confidence that my competition wasn't going to run me over. And you won't have that in the next race, so it's a luxury right now. So I thank them for doing that, because I would obviously do it back to them. And I was happy to be in the show, man. I was sweating. I didn't like the day off. I had to sit on it too long.
Congratulations, winner of qualifying race number 2. He's had great momentum in 2023 and looking for a win here at Martinsville.
So he knows he's in the big race, and he had a very good handling race car to pick up qualifying race number 2 victory, that being Doug Barnes. On screen now, we're getting set for race number 3. A couple of laps away from dropping the green flag or so. There's Brendan Queen with other fast drivers behind him. But what about Carson Guapel? We talked a lot about that driver from Mooresville, North Carolina. He has done quite well and almost was the winner of this race 1 year ago. So he's got to have a lot of momentum on his side coming into this race here this afternoon.
One of the most decorated drivers in this field, the runner-up in this race, 2 Peyton Sellers from a year ago, the defending late model stock car champion in the Cars Tour, the super late model champion from the Cars Tour 2 years ago, an Old North State Nationals winner as well, and has won just about everything you'd like to in only a year and a half of late model stock car competition. It's crazy to think about it when you say it that way. He's not been in a late model long, but we know how good the group at Junior Motorsports is that puts together this car for him. This is the same team that Josh Berry ran with and won this race in 2019 with, so they know how to get it done at Martinsville, and you know this is a race that team owner Dale Earnhardt Jr.
treasures as much as anybody. He would love for nothing more than Carson Quapple to bring it home for JRM and put it in victory lane to get another grand for the clock. And I think Carson would love it just the same. It's one of the few things he has not accomplished in late model stock car competition. But then again, there are a lot of people in this field that are pretty decorated themselves and also haven't won a grandfather clock.
Carson Guapel showed a lot of speed on Friday, qualified third when we did qualification Friday night under the lights. Has 5 wins on the Cars Tour here in 2023, leads the championship, trying to go for back-to-back-to-back championships. Carson Guapel so strong here this season as we look at yet another race car. And then look at this. We're going to talk about Martinsville Speedway. You cannot come to the racetrack without getting, popcorn's great, but they have the famous, hot dog, and we've got a healthy food. I think there's an apple down there as well.
I respect the popcorn and the apple, but the hot dog is what Martinsville is famous for. Onion and chili and mustard and slaw. And just, I envy the people that can freely walk to the hot dog stand and get that. I envy our friends in the media center that have the opportunity to grab them. They are tasty, tasty, tasty everywhere you go around this property. And I don't know if your Martinsville experience is complete without having at least one when you come in.
You got to have at least one, and I'll be getting some here in just a little bit. We get a minute to catch our breath between qualifying races and the main feature. Carson Guapel inside row number 1. Brendan Queen outside row 1 as we get set. 25 laps. That's the distance for qualifying race number 2. Who's going to make the big one? In qualifying race 3, we're going to find out. Green flag is out. The ValleyStar Credit Union 300 qualifying races roll on. We're side by side all the way through the field.
This is almost a carbon copy of what we saw at Dominion Raceway in June when Butterbean and Carson Quapple were door-to-door for the win there. They'll start off this race 1 and 2. Jared Fryer himself, a former champion of the Cars Tour, working in third. Matt Cox, who's been so successful from the Company A racing at Florence Motor Speedway down in South Carolina, to the outside there in the third row, trying to hang on to fourth. And Caden Honeycutt, who's one of the Cars Tour before, also started in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, also making moves early.
Jared Fryer from southeastern North Carolina. We're rolling through there, and we got a car very slow coming off of turn number 2, and we got a car in the wall. That'll be the 42 race entry from South Mills, North Carolina. Chris Horton with problems. He's not facing the right direction coming out of turn number 4, and early on in this event, just 1 lap in books. We're under the caution flag.
Under the yellow flag for Horton as we get a good look at his 42 machine.
One of the few purple cars that we've seen here. Not a commonality amongst the field. It's normally black, white, red, or blue. Those are usually the easiest body pieces to get. So that's what you see a lot of bases for late model cars end up being. But neat to see a little bit of a different wrap on one of these. And a good looking race car, even with the little bit of damage that it has. And this wreck happens early enough in this feature where Horton will have the opportunity to take advantage of things.
Let's go trackside and hear from Connor Hall.
Connor Hall was in the transfer position in qualifying race number 2. You just recently crowned the NASCAR National Champion, but today there's been a lot of controversy with that transfer spot. Walk me through all that you're hearing from the team of Magnum Tape.
Yeah, so, I can't repeat what I'm hearing from them, but long story short, it was a restart. I think both him and I were both good in the show. I think we were 7th and 9th on the restart. I think he made a move to the bottom, which I found like way too aggressive, and just ended up kind of taking us out. So when we went back racing, I obviously showed my displeasure and moved him back out of the way, and luckily we were able to make the show again.
You were involved in a wreck. They actually just showed the replay of that wreck, but you were able to move your way through the field and get into that transfer position. How were you able to do so with all of the damage?
Just Chad Bryan Racing brings a really great car, but I don't know, I'm sure it's my fault. Everything's my fault, but I appreciate the opportunity Chad Bryan Racing's given me this season. We're going to get his fix as good as possible and try to have a good showing for tonight's 200-lap race.
Connor Hall, good luck to you tonight in the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. He's had a great 2023 season, again, national champion, and has taken home many wins.
You know, Brian, I think it's interesting that Connor brings up the point, because I had sort of thought about it as I watched the replays, and I was wondering if he might bring it up that, you know, in a situation like that where you've got some time to go, and when you're both in the top 10, as he and Magnum Tate were, you can't make a move like Magnum Tate did, but that's the flip side of it, right? And now Connor Hall's got a whole bunch of work to do over the course of the next 3 hours just to get his car repaired to race. And even then, you're not necessarily certain. Even if you think you've got it patched up, you always have that concern in the back of your head as to whether or not you're truly racing with a car at 100%. So I definitely can understand why Connor Hall's not happy. I don't think a lot of people in this situation are.
So, of course, emotions ramping up here in these qualifying races as we'll whittle more than half of the field out. Will be carved out and will not make the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. Lights have gone off the pace car. We are just one lap into this qualifying race number 3, so it didn't take long until we had problems with South Mills, North Carolina racer, that being Chris Morton, who races regularly in Hampton, Virginia at Langley Speedway, just 15 years of age, has a bright future ahead of him. Pace car down pit lane. Here comes Carson Wappel, Brendan Queen, the 03 car on the top side, as we'll see the green flag come back out one more time. Everybody standing on the throttle, working the gearbox, and already some drivers thinking about going 3 wide as they race the 1 and 2.
Largely 2 wide racing for the moment. Carson Wappel looking to edge ahead of Butterbean. Jared Fryer's got 3rd lockdown. Matt Cox has 4th, Honeycutt 5th, and William Sawalich to the inside. They're just a little bit further back, got to the bottom of Mason Diaz and made that work. But Butterbean, Wappel, Butterbean, Wappel. How many times have we said the names of those 2 drivers together? And yet again here on the biggest stage for late model stock car racing, they are battling for the lead just as they have done all season long.
Butterbean trying to do it the hard way on the top side of the racetrack, and indeed he will now clear Carson Wappel as they race back to 1 and 2. That will allow him to slam the door on the 8 car, go to the inside as they race off of corner number 2. The top 7, 8 cars right now single file, but further back behind them, they are double file, and there you see them as they race back to 1 and 2. Chase Dixon involved in that. The 07 car breaks loose, coming off of turns 3 and 4 for contact was made. Gathers it back together and continues on. But that's what we see on a short track. Drivers getting together, and sometimes you got to make a little bit of contact to move the car up. As we look at Josh Kosick in the 2 car, he's in the final transfer spot at the moment.
Kosick's got in the final transfer spot. Ronnie Bassett Jr., originally from Winston-Salem, resides down in Lexington just behind him. And then Brad Housewright and Chase Dixon you see on your screens with Connor Jones, who is one of the most aggressive drivers you're going to find in this field. So if you want to look at people who are not going to wait to make their way to the front and have the talent to make it happen, Connor Jones is going to put on a show back there.
Indeed, that is the case as they're fighting for that 10th spot, working through turns 3 and 4. Brad Housewright in there in the 88 car as he looks down to the bottom of the racetrack, going to the inside of Chase Dixon. That's a battle for 12th position. Connor Jones just behind them in 14th. They recognize they got to pass a few cars to make it to that top 10. They race side by side once more through turns 3 and 4. Connor Jones going right behind the 88 and Brad Housewright as they work off of turn number 4, and we'll put now 7 laps on the scoreboard.
There is damage to the right front of Josh Kosick's machine, and he bounces off of Kyle Dudley, and now that's going to stack up everybody around the transfer spot. So that was a 2 to 3 car battle. That's now a 6 car battle for essentially 2 spots.
High speed pace laps as we got 1 car sideways to come off at turn 4. Connor Jones comes off the ground of the 44 car, and we got the caution flag back out now here for the 2nd time. It comes at lap 8. Multiple cars involved in that, at least 3 that we can see right now. Looks like the Ford Mustang coming here, the 7B race car. That's Carl Budzetsky. He's having some problems there as he takes that car back to turns 1 and 2. Also, Thomas Scott involved in that as well. Here's our FloRacing replay.
There must have been something that happened to Josh Kosick, because you see the damage on the right front of that car, and he had backed up towards this group for about the 2 or 3 laps before this incident. So something with that car happened. Don't know what, couldn't see it, but he had maybe about 5 to 10 car lengths on this group and came back to them, and as they all bunched together, they ran out of space, and they were all trying to figure out where they needed to go in 3 and 4, and essentially just ran on top of one another, both figuratively and literally. And I'm not certain who got the worst of that. You could make an argument for a few people, but we see Chase Dixon now on pit road trying to get his car fixed up. I imagine Connor Jones is likely going to come to pit road soon with the way that car went up into the air coming out of turn 4. There's Jones's machine, another RNS Race Cars machine. Mike Darn Racing helping him out as well. So they're going to try and make sure that right front is okay, and then we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, lots of drivers involved in this one, at least 4, possibly more. Now, Connor Jones, we saw that car like we saw earlier in heat race or qualifying race number 2, came off the ground as well, but he gathered it back together as we see that car setting down on pit lane. The crew members looking it over here as we've completed, again, 8 laps around this half-mile course here this afternoon, and already big-time problems, and just like we've seen all afternoon long, the problems are right around that 10th spot, because that's where they're racing the hardest, because they know if I don't get inside the top 10, I'm done here very, very early on. And so no surprise where we're seeing all our problems.
In a lot of these qualifying races, that's where the intensity has been, because there's so much more on the line, and it's been pretty consistent throughout the first 2 qualifying races and change at this point, that the leaders will race and they have no problem racing, but they might give a little bit more than some of the drivers in the back, as you see Chase Dixon get out of the car. So it may be the end of his day here at Martinsville. Does not look particularly happy after the way things panned out, as he's going to walk down pit road and maybe just take a moment to clear his thoughts. Connor Jones is still there on pit road. They're still trying to tape up the hood of the number 44 Chevrolet. He's got opportunities to get that fixed up. A little bit of time before we go back to green flag racing, but not too long. And we heard one of the crew members say we got 1 lap to go, so you wonder how much urgency is going to be there with that crew to try and get Jones back out on the racetrack before we go back green flag racing in this qualifying race.
So Connor Jones, the winner at Tri-County Speedway from Fredericksburg, Virginia, was being scored in 14th position, setting down on pit lane. They are working on taping the hood down to make sure it stays secured on that race car. He is in the pits, and there we see the other race car, Chase Dixon, who already climbed from his machine. He is walking back down towards his trailer in the pit area, so they're going to push that car back to the pit lane, or make that back to the pit area, as his afternoon has come to a close. Tough break for Chase Dixon. He was scored in 13th position. And we talked about Josh Kosick, who was inside the top 10. So Kosick, having some trouble here this afternoon. And again, they continue to work on the Connor Jones race car. We're not even halfway done, just 7 laps complete into this one here this afternoon.
Not even halfway through this qualifying race. We're halfway through the qualifying races. We have another one coming up after this, but just this and then qualifying race number 4 to come a little bit later on, as we continue to watch the Connor Jones team get that car repaired. Finally, he climbs out. Is that a spider web or a spaghetti of duct tape?
I think you could argue it was both. I mean, it kind of looks good. They're going to make it work. Hey, just get to the top 10. And we talked about Ryan Matthews in the previous qualifying race. We counted him out. We thought he was done. And then all of a sudden he's back in. And what about the 77 of Connor Hall? So anything can happen. And we saw, 6 caution flags in the last qualifying race. So it's anybody's race at this point, but right now it looks like Connor Jones being stopped there at the end of pit lane. NASCAR is going to release him once the entire field passes through, but we're still a couple of laps or so from going back under the green flag. All of this behind Brendan Queen.
I will say, having seen Connor Jones race a fair amount of late model stock car races, if there is a driver that is not afraid to use the front bumper to move up the field, Connor Jones would be one of the names that would come to the very top of my list. He is as fearless as they come and not afraid to be aggressive. So anybody keeping your eye on the back of the field, it's going to be a very fun man to watch, because now that he's got some work to do, he's going to make some big time moves to try and get the track position. He needs to get back into the top 10 as we now finally get the one to go for Brandon Wilson.
So the track has been cleaned up. We're ready to go back after it here this afternoon at Martinsville Speedway. Brendan Queen will restart as the race leader. He comes into this final Virginia Triple Crown competition as the leader with the best average finish amongst the first 2 races at South Boston Speedway and Larry Kinglaw's Huntley Speedway. So keep an eye on Brendan Queen. He elected to restart on the high side for the choose zones. He'll restart top side alongside Carson Quapple. That's how he passed the 8 car early on the top side, so he likes it up there as we see the green flag come back out once more. Carson Quapple fighting down to the inside. He's going to try to clear Brendan Queen as they race back to 1 and 2. The entire field stacked up 2 by 2.
Queen definitely slid a little bit through the middle of 1 and 2, so that gives Quapple the opportunity to take the lead. Meanwhile, that'll be back to second. Jared Fryer trying to clear Matt Cox for the third spot, and that will give Caden Honeycutt the opportunity to drive underneath McCumbee Elliott Racing number 51 and get to the bottom as they make contact in turns 1 and 2.
Those cars were leaning on one another, racing down into turns 1 and 2. They continue to stay side by side, door handle to door handle, racing over to turns 3 and 4. That'll stack up the field just behind him. We're talking about Caden Honeycutt in car 10 as he'll make the pass over Matt Cox, the 51 car. So move Caden Honeycutt now to P4. That drop kicks the 51 back to 5th. Here comes the 24 Mason Diaz.
You saw the way the 51 moved. I don't necessarily think he's happy with the way that Honeycutt raced him. Meanwhile, on the right-hand portion of your screen, this is the battle for the transfer position. Ronnie Bassett just got around Josh Cossack a lap ago, so Bassett now holds the 10th and final spot to transfer into the main. Cossack currently is the first driver on the outside looking in as Mason Diaz on the left-hand portion of the screen looks underneath Matt Cox to try and take away the 5th spot.
So the driver of car number 04 having a great run from Lexington, North Carolina. He's already passed 5 cars to get where he is right now. So he's been aggressive here early on, but look behind him. It's getting racy as we'll see the 2 race car giving a battle there. That's Josh Cossack. He was involved in that incident early on this afternoon. As we look further up ahead of the field as they race back over to turns 3 and 4, Chase Burrow going to work on William Sawalich. That is for the 7th position as Kyle Dudley looks on in that 4 race car as they race in 1.
With apologies, everybody watching, fair to say that he burrowed his way underneath the bumpers. There's contact there between Cossack and Ronnie Bassett, who ends up head first in the defense in turn 2. Tries to back it up and get going. Waiting for him to move, and now finally the caution flag will come out here on lap 14 as Bassett and Cossack came together racing yet again for the transfer spot. Another incident right around that 10th position, and Bassett now will need to take a sledgehammer and then some to the top of that machine, because I can't imagine the visibility out of the windshield is all that great given how high that hood is on his machine.
The front of that Chevrolet is battered as they come down pit lane. He was running in 10th spot, giving a strong run, trying to stay ahead of Josh Cossack as they got together. That sent the 04 car facing the wrong direction towards the outside retaining wall in turn number 2. So Ronnie Bassett, 27 years of age. Taking a look at the FloRacing replay there. You see Cossack going down to the inside. Has room down in turns 1 and 2. Looked like the Cossack car may have got a little loose. He came up the racetrack into the 04 car. I don't know if that was intentional. I think it just broke loose. He tried to gather it back together, and as he gathered it back together, he came up the racetrack, got into the side of the 04 race car of Ronnie Bassett, and that just shot Ronnie way up the racetrack in the wrong direction.
The weird thing about that to me is that Cossack, normally when you see incidents like that, the driver on the inside will get loose on corner entry. And in that case, it looked like Cossack was fine on entry, and it was almost as he was entering the middle of the corner. That's where the car broke, which is not something you see all that often. So I don't know whether or not it snapped out from underneath him right at the end of the braking zone. It's not often you see it happen that late. But in either case, Ronnie Bassett was the one who ended up with the worst end of that incident. He'll have the work to do to climb back up through the field. Cossack will hold his track position, but that car clearly is hurting.
Here is one more time looking at the replay there. You see right in the middle, as you just mentioned, in 1 and 2, came up the racetrack into Ronnie Bassett, not once but twice. And then Ronnie Bassett right there, head first and towards the outside retaining wall, the safer barrier there, just past the call811.com banner there on the race course. And there is right now Cossack talking about the 2 race car as he rides here on the front stretch. Cossack now inside the top 10. And we'll check that. Yeah, I believe he's being scored in 10th position here at the moment for qualifying race number 3. The indication has been given. We're going green flag racing next time by as Ronnie Bassett looks like he'll be rejoining the field, although he'll be at the rear of the field, not in the 10th position that he once was in.
But there is a chance. We are saying there is a chance for
Absolutely.
Ronnie Bassett to make his way back. I mean, shoot, if Connor Hall can get spun out, get his doors sheared off the way he did in qualifying race number 2 and make it back up to the front. I'm not ruling out anything yet as we get ready for the restart coming on lap 15. Pettibone to the outside, Carson Quapple to the inside as they come underneath the flag stand and back to turn 1 at Martinsville.
Side by side, all the way through the field, Brendan Queen tries get around Carson Guapo. Guapo is trying to go ahead and clear the 0-3 car. Not going to happen. They're going to be neck and neck racing back to 3 and 4, as is everybody else. It is definitely getting wild out on the racetrack as we now put 15 laps on the scoreboard. Scoreboard, that is. Drivers trading paint all over the racetrack. But Brendan Queen, like a gnat, he's not giving up on the outside lane. That's how he passed the 8 car earlier today to take the lead in this event as they race off of turns 3 and 4, still side by side.
I just noticed here that white car, that extra on your screen is there's another yellow flag out on the racetrack, and trouble over in turns 3 and 4 as 2 cars have managed to park themselves up.
Mike Chambers being one of those. So Mike Chambers with trouble there in car number 4. He was in 14th position. And then we've got the 88 of Brad Housewright also involved in that. So 2 cars, and it looks like Brad Housewright has extreme damage to the front of that race car, James. Lots of damage as he smacked the safer barrier.
The left front tire is down, and I wouldn't be shocked if there's suspension damage on that left front as well. The way it's sort of tilted inside the car, almost sort of peeking inside that left front fender. So major damage for Brad Housewright that may be the end of his day here. Chambers, on the other hand, just looks like he's waiting to get his car back in line so he can drive away. But Brad Housewright might be done after that incident with all the damage he has up front. Not a lot of time to repair it.
I'll look to the right side of your frame as we get the replay here. There you watch him racing back over into turns 3 and 4. And it looks like the Housewright car was already loose. May have been some contact as they raced over in 3 and 4. And there you see the 4 of Mike Chambers involved in that. And as you mentioned, the big damage is on that 88 car, that driver from Hickory, North Carolina, as they have taken the hood off of that car. It's going to go on the wrecker, but we do see Brad moving around. He still sits in the race car with the window net up, certainly dejected as he knows his day has come to a close. And he, like so many others, he could sniff that 10th spot. He was running in 12th position. So again, that is where we've seen all afternoon long. No surprise. If you want to see trouble, if you want to have trouble and problems, it's going to be around the 10th spot.
Action station. All day. All day. As you see, there is a lot more damage here. Although, if you are Mike Chambers, you could very easily just cut that fender off and probably be okay, as we'll get a good look at Brad Housewright here, who will make the walk, presumably, to the ambulance and get checked out at the infield care center. But there is Mike Chambers' crew immediately. You can see the way that that panel is sort of shaking. They've already got a saw on it, and the idea is we're going to just chop it off and make sure the fenders are clear and try and get back going. Again, aerodynamics don't matter all that much at Martinsville. If you've got a working car with 4 wheels, you'll be okay. It's nice to have fenders, but it's not a necessity.
I mean, you know, we can go modified style racing. We do modified racing.
There's history of modified racing here at Martinsville. They've got a pretty storied tale to tell, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. As we continue to see the work take place for the Timberlake, North Carolina native, we're talking about Mike Chambers in car number 4 with problems here as Mike was running about around the 14th position at the time of that problem over in turns 3 and 4 as NASCAR continues the cleanup process right now. But the work right now is happening hot and heavy amongst those 4 team members, make that 5 that joins the mix as well. And there we see back down pit lane one more time the 44 entry of Connor Jones from Fredericksburg, Virginia. They continue to go to work on that race car, so whatever problems he had earlier, it continues on. And, you know, there's no harm, no foul. You might as well come down pit lane, particularly if you're not advancing positions or if you know I've got a big-time problem. Come on down pit lane, get it looked after, because we still have 10 laps to go in this one. And I say 10 laps to go. It's 10 green flag laps.
Green flag laps. That's the important thing to know. But no, you make a good point about Connor Jones, that if you're already back there and you know you can take the opportunity to fix up a little bit more damage, and the repairing of the damage rather, would be more valuable than the track position, why not come down and try and fix it up and just make sure that that right front suspension is okay, especially if you happen to make it into the main later. The other thing I think we should note under this yellow, if you look at the shots on your screen, we look around here in the booth, cloud cover has changed over the course of the afternoon. We've had sunshine, we had clouds, especially in that second qualifying race. This is the most sunshine this track has seen
since we went on air at 12:45. And that could change the way the track handles. That could change the way some of these cars handle in the racetrack. And I have a hunch that there are some drivers who are not mad about the sun coming out and loosening up the racetrack, making it a little bit slicker, and some drivers who would rather it be cloudy and cool and tighter. So worth watching that as well.
All right, let's go down and talk with Jacqueline, who's got a report on Ronnie Bassett.
Yeah, Bassett.
So Jacqueline Jake down on pit lane. Let's send it back to her. We'll get back with Jacqueline here in a moment. She had a report on Ronnie Bassett, who's back out on the racetrack in car number 04. If you recall, he was involved in our third caution flag as we get set to go back after it. Now 15 laps are on the board, 10 more to go. Getting ready to see the green flag come back out, and indeed, it is unfurled. We are racing once more. Carson Gloppel, Brendan Queen at the head of the field. They're side by side here in turn 2.
Carson Quapple got a really good jump on the inside, and that might be the first time we've seen him clear Brendan Queen throughout the day, as there's Matt Cox sliding in the middle of 3 and 4, and he will stop on the curbs there, and we'll see if he can get that car reversed and going, or we'll get the yellow flag to come out once again here in qualifying race number 3. But that happened right in front of our shot. He was dead center of it, and all of a sudden went sideways on entry to turn 3 and came to a rest in the middle of turns 3 and 4, right by the Yellowwood curbing there to the inside of the racetrack.
Caution flag number 5 because of the 51 car of Matt Cox going for a spin. As we look now at the replay, went down to the inside of Chase Burrow. Not sure if he went up or if Chase Burrow came down, but nevertheless, the 51 of Cox goes around. That stacks up the entire field. Drivers doing evasive action, going to the high side to avoid hitting that spinning 51 car as it's set down in turns 3 and 4 on the curb. And right now, that Aaron's race entry Chevrolet coming down pit lane to get looked after, but unfortunate for him because he was inside the top 10.
Usually in situations like that, if the car on the outside goes around, it means that the driver to the inside was at least to the door number or pretty close to being there. If the driver to the inside goes around, then usually that driver wasn't quite as far alongside the driver to the outside as they would have liked.
Let's take a look at another look at this one as we watch him race back down in turns 3 and 4. And again, I got to think Matt Cox just gave it all he had and went down into turn number 3. Not sure if he didn't realize that the Chase Burrow 8B car was right there. If Burrow came down just a bit, it's kind of hard to tell from our vantage point. But nevertheless, Matt Cox went the wrong direction after he went for a spin. But you know, it's not a badly damaged race car. At least it doesn't appear to be. We see a little tape going on the race car as the crew members have buttoned it up just a bit. As we get the indication we're going green flag racing in one more lap. So guess what, James? We got one more green flag lap in since the last caution flag.
Quick point before we go back green flag racing. In the same vein as what Connor Hall brought up in his interview earlier, if you're both in the top 10, do you need to make a move like that with 10 laps to go in the qualifying race?
Good observation as we watch the field work down the backstretch at a reduced clip here at the moment, but that will not be the case when they go back to turns 3 and 4 the next time around. Here they come through turns 3 and 4 like we've seen for many, many restarts now. Carson Gloppel on the inside of Brendan Queen, Jared Fryer, Mason Diaz. The entire field sees the green flag. They're racing back to turns 1 and 2. Carson Gloppel trying to dispatch or dispose of Brendan Queen as they work off of turn 2. He'll do that. Here comes Jared Fryer. He sneaks down to the inside. He and Mason Diaz go side by side in 3 and 4.
We've not had the chance to talk about Mason Diaz yet, but we're learning that Diaz started on the inside of row 6 in 11th. He has raced his way all the way up to 4th. And this is another driver that's not afraid to get into other people as he and Caden Honeycutt come together just a little bit on the exit of turn 2. Meanwhile, shuffling further back in the back, Kyle Dudley, Josh Kosick, and the 8 machine fighting for position a little bit further back in the field to the inside of Kosick. Thomas Scott will go.
Thomas Scott right now being scored in 10th. He's trying to get out of the bullseye, get out of the hornet's nest, get ahead of Josh Kosick. Put him as the new driver everybody's chasing. Indeed, the 8 car will clear. Thomas Scott gets around Josh Kosick. Here comes the 17, Jason Myers. He looks to the high side. They're going to go 3 wide coming off of turns 3 and 4. It's getting hot and heavy, and this is for the final transfer spot.
With noting that that's Jason Myers out of Virginia and not the modified racer at Bowman Gray Stadium, just to make sure there's not any confusion, as Kosick is going to get into Thomas Scott. There was a chain reaction
action off of Carl Bozewski, and another car there is going to get stopped. I think that's Chris Horton Jr. that's stuck up on the outside, but damage to Thomas Scott's car in particular as Kosick is stopped in the middle of the racetrack, and Chris Horton is parked just to his outside. But look at Thomas Scott's machine, all sorts of fenders beat up and bent as he immediately brings the car to pit road.
Josh Kosick caught a piece of that action as well. Multiple cars involved in this one. The 6th time we've seen the yellow flag, and we're going to take a look at the replay now as we watch them race back for the final transfer spot going through the corner now. You see the 2 car breaking loose. Not sure if he and the 7 got together. Nevertheless, Thomas Scott, that red 8 car, does a 360, and it stacks up the entire field. There you see the hit between Thomas Scott and the Josh Kosick race car, and then we see the 42 race car caught a piece of that, and just nowhere to go. And this track, as wide as it is, when you start stacking them up this way, it kind of becomes blocked and there's nowhere to go.
And most importantly, when you're 3 wide like that, I imagine that the Thomas Scott crew might be mad at Josh Kosick, but it was Carl Bozewski who got into Kosick, who was since sent up from that contact into Thomas Scott. So Bozewski was the one that really started all that. And if you're Thomas Scott and you're that car on the outside, there truly is nothing that you can do, because you have no idea that you're going to go for a spin until that contact comes. If you're giving the driver inside of U space, you figure you're okay, but nothing that Scott could have done. So a truly tough break, probably the toughest break of anybody we've seen in this field so far for Thomas Scott.
Taking a look at one more replay here as they work over back to turns 1 and 2. There you see the 7 getting into the 2, which got into the 8, that being Carl Bozewski. And then Thomas Scott caught a piece of that, and Chris Horton. And there you see the 23 trying to snake by on the inside, that being Zachary Dabbs. I haven't talked a lot about him, so Zachary Dabbs trying to make his way inside the top 10 as he tries to squeak by there on the inside as the track quickly narrowed up. Nowhere to really go, but he did make it by, as did a few others, as the track completely blocked up as they exited turn number 2 down to the back straightaway. And there's Josh Kosick getting ready to climb from that car. His afternoon likely done, as he has tried his best to make this one. And Josh Kosick was in the final transfer spot, and you and I were talking about it. They were racing hard and heavy. Thomas Scott was in the 10th spot, but he wanted to get out of that position. He knew that everybody was going to go after him. He was the bullseye, and unfortunately for him, he was also part of that action. Again, talking about Thomas Scott.
So Josh Kosick electing not to take the ride on the tow truck and instead will drive his car to pit road. I also would have concerns about Chris Horton, and maybe Kosick as well, as the hood has come up on Kosick's machine, so that'll make it a bit of an adventure to get down there. But look at the right front wheel. It is flat and it is towed in. So you've got alignment issues, you've got hood issues clearly, there may be suspension issues there. That car has been the center of attention pretty much throughout all of this qualifying race, and took a big shot from Chris Horton as well. I don't know if a lot of us caught that at the very end of that replay, but Horton sort of slid in there trying to miss it, and gave a pretty significant shunt to the side of Kosick's machine. So there may be more damage as a result of that. There may also be some damage to Horton's car as well that we might not necessarily see. Could be some suspension damage there too. So I think that's something we have to keep in mind as these drivers try to get their cars repaired before the green flag comes back out.
Big-time problems for Josh Kosick, who will likely not be in the main event for the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 when we drop the green flag. But I'm not going to count anybody out. As we've mentioned, we've seen too many drivers come from the back to work themselves inside the top 10. Big tip of the cap to the NASCAR officials and our safety crew, as well as the wreckers here this afternoon. If we're going to give a hard charger award for who worked the hardest today, I think cleanup would get that award, because we've had a lot of it here this afternoon. Already now 6 caution flags in a 25-lap qualifying event. We're at lap number 19. I don't think we're done with yellow flags.
I feel comfortable taking that bet. I'd feel comfortable. I guess the real question is, where are you setting the over-under on when it comes to remaining yellows in this qualifying?
I'm running out of paper to write down when all these caution flags have come out, so I'm not even sure. Lights have gone off the pace car. It's going to come back down pit lane one more time, and you got to think Carson Quapple and Brendan Queen are saying enough is enough. Let's just finish this event, as they are getting ready to take us back under the green flag coming out of corner number 4. Green flag is out. Heat race, or qualifying race number 3, is back at it here as they go back to turns 1 and 2. Quapple trying to clear the 0-3 of Brendan Quinn. Here comes Jared Fryer. He looks down to the inside. The battle's on for second.
The sun has come out, and I don't think Butterbean's car likes it as much as it did the cloudy conditions, because he's not been able to stay with Carson Quapple as easily since the sunshine started to splash on Martinsville. Look at this move from Caden Honeycutt, who thought about going to the inside of Jared Fryer and then thought better of it, so he'll tuck in line just in front of Mason Diaz as these two try to figure out where they want to go. Chase Burrows to the inside of William Sawalich. That's for 6th and 7th. And then Kyle Dudley, Carl Bozeski, and Ronnie Bassett Jr. has clawed his way back into the top 10 after that incident with Cossack earlier in this qualifying race.
I was just getting ready to take note of who is back inside of the top 10. There's Chase Burrows, the 8B race car. He races modifieds on asphalt. He races late models on dirt. He's pretty much everywhere you can go at a racetrack. He doesn't care if it's paved or not. Just ahead of him, Mason Diaz in the 24 car. Briefly looked out the inside of Caden Honeycutt. Honeycutt washes up the racetrack just a bit. We got big-time problems now in turn number 2. William Sawalich in the middle of that, as is the 4 car of Kyle Dudley. They were inside the top 10 when that incident happened, because Kyle Dudley was being scored in 7th spot. Caution flag, number 7's on the speedway.
Making it more difficult than it needs to be are those two, and that is not where you want to be if you're one of Dudley or if you're one of William Sawalich. Dudley has attempted to make the feature 9 times. This is his 10th shot at it. He's made the feature 4 times. His best finished 8th in 2019. We know about William Sawalich's success in the ARC Menard Z series. A little bit greener here. This is his first crack at a grandfather clock.
Look who was involved in this one as well, who just barely squeaked by, I should say, that being Carl Bozeski. He got around it, but the unfortunate car, that being the 4 entry, does not. We're talking about Kyle Dudley, as he and the 43 of William Sawalich got together. William Sawalich with heavy front end damage on that race car. You see the crew members pulling it back. They're trying to clear the sheet metal from the front tires. They're also going to go under the hood to see what damage is there, because we know there is some damage. As they look after it, they go ahead and jack up the left side of the race car to give some more visibility under the race machine to see what's taking place on the 43 race car. William Sawalich, who comes from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, the 2023 ARCA Menards E-Series champion. Not having the afternoon he wanted. He was hoping to get inside the top 10. He was inside the top 10, so that means he wanted to finish, I should say, inside the top 10. He was in 8th, but big-time trouble.
Also a testament, I think, to just the prestige of this race, that you have a driver from the Midwest and from the land of 10,000 lakes making an appearance here at Martinsville, that people from all the way in Minnesota want to come down here to win this race. A lot of work to do, though, for Sawalich if he wants to get that car back out on track.
Don't go anywhere. We're back with more after this short break.
Back to action here. Qualifying race number 3, the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 within the final 5 laps of this one. And Carson Quapple back to the front ahead of Brendan Butterbean Queen in a good battle for 3rd between Jared Fryer, Caden Honeycutt, and Mason Diaz.
Here they go, side by side, coming off of turns 3 and 4 for the 3rd spot. They're 3 wide. Maybe for the moment, Mason Diaz thought better of it. Cracked out of the throttle. He'll follow the tire tracks of the 14 car from Trinity, North Carolina. We're talking about car 14, Jared Fryer. Looking further back, we see the 51 race car, Matt Cox. He's in the 10th spot. They're going to be side by side behind him. Here comes Matt Cox looking down to the inside of car number 8, Chase Burrows, as they race as hard as they can. Right there, the 8, that's the red car. That is Thomas Scott, right now running in 9th position behind him. They're side by side. Great action here as we're getting ready to wrap this one up. We're coming now to the checkered flag, and Carson Quapple will win as Ronnie Bassett goes around in turns 3 and 4. He was inside the top 10. He will not make the main feature after Bassett goes for a wild ride, but Thomas Scott in car 8 gets the final transfer position.
What a heartbreaker for Ronnie Bassett. He was right there in the mix until the very end, and Thomas Scott is able to make it through along with Kyle Dudley and Matt Cox and Chase Burrow and Carl Podzebski. Not all of them ran in the top 10 for the majority of this qualifying race, but they make it in the end. And it's Bassett that is the one driver that ends up on the outside looking in of that bunch. William Sawalich and Connor Jones, also notable drivers who did not make it in advance into the feature, along with Jason Myers out of Virginia, Zachary Dabbs, Chris Horton Jr., Brad Housewright, Mike Chambers, Chase Dixon, and Kenny Forbes. Here's a look at that incident on the last lap, and there was help, I believe. Couldn't quite tell who that was behind Ronnie Bassett, but trouble for him. End of the day for Bassett. His bid for grandfather clock is over.
Tough break for Ronnie Bassett from Lexington, North Carolina, after contact was made in the final 2 turns of this 25-lap qualifying race. He was inside the top 10. He will not advance after he did not finish there. It looks like he'll finish unofficially, talking about the 0-4 of Ronnie Bassett in 16th position. But there is your winner, car number 8, that being Carson Guapel. He has done it. He will advance to the main feature. Brendan Queen, who came home in the runner-up spot, he'll go over and congratulate. There you see him giving the handshake to Carson Guapel. He'll make the top 10. Caden Honeycutt, he'll finish up in 3rd position. Mason Diaz was 4th. Jared Fryer rounds out the top 5. Coming home in 6th, that'll be Carl Budzetsky. He'll make the main event. Chase Burrow finished up in 7th. Matt Cox was 8th. Kyle Dudley 9th. And Thomas Scott makes the final transfer position. And we'll be right back with more after this. We're back with live flag-to-flag coverage of the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 on FloRacing here this afternoon. A beautiful Sunday in Martinsville, Virginia. We are getting set for our final qualifying race to set the starting lineup for the big 200-lap race. And who will win the grandfather clock? Getting ready to set that field. Look at this great crowd that has assembled here in southwestern Virginia to watch some of the best late model stock car racing in the country.
So much excitement for this day. So much yet to be written here in the 38th chapter of the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 here at Martinsville. Brian White, James Pike bringing you all the action from the short track in southwestern Virginia. We've got one more qualifying race to bring you to set the final 10 positions for the 40-car field that will contest the 200-lap feature later this afternoon. And you see Ryan Millington leading this group to green. He was fast all Friday afternoon in practice and quick qualifying. Here's your starting grid for qualifying race number 4. Millington, a former 2-time track champion at Hickory Motor Speedway, starts on pole alongside Carrollton, Virginia's Matthew Waltz. Riley Gentry out of Easley, South Carolina, starts in third. To his outside, Blake Stallings out of Danville, Virginia, will roll off fourth. Jacob Hefner, also a former track champion at Hickory, starts in the 5th position. 6th on the grid is Conover, North Carolina's Dexter Kennett.
Looking at the rest of the field as we set the starting lineup for the main feature. Rolling off inside the 4th row, Davey Callahan from Fredericksburg, Virginia. He'll be joined alongside Dylan Ward from Walkertown, North Carolina, as he races at Ace and Bowman Gray. Row number 5, Landon Pimpleton. Watch that 0 car. He's quick. He's from Amelia, Virginia, alongside another fast hot rod, Brandon Pierce, in car 2. Row 6 will find Forest Hill, Maryland's Trent Barnes in the 1 car, joined alongside Riley Neal in car 38.
Starting behind the real deal, Riley Neal, will be Heath Causey from Snow Camp, North Carolina. He'll roll off on the inside of row 7. To his outside, Cole Bruce from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Corey Dunn out of Salem will roll off on the inside of row 8. In 15th, Ross Boo Boo Dalton out of Liberty, North Carolina, starts in the outside of row 8 and 16th. Final 4 cars that will take to the track for qualifying race number 4. Anthony Adams from Simpsonville, Buddy Isles Jr. from Littleton, North Carolina, Jonathan Worley from Kingsport, Tennessee, and James Sweeney from Floyd, Virginia, round out this 20-car field for qualifying race number 4.
Let's go trackside and get the thoughts of the winner of qualifying race 3.
Yeah, qualifying race number 3 win goes to Carson Quapple, and you are no rookie to victory lane, so you are finished up front once again. But what are your thoughts going into the feature event and how you're going to be able to take home the win tonight?
Yeah, I think for us it's just going to be about trying to get the setup really tuned in. I feel like to win this race you're going to have to be perfect all night, and you can't be fighting anything really. So hopefully we can get the car a little bit better, get it toward the center and come off a little bit better. But I'm sure Brian and all the guys are going to have me tuned in and see if we can get the Bass Pro Shop Chevy in front.
You and Butterbean had quite a battle going on. Is he going to be one that you're going to have to look out for?
Yeah, I mean, I think this place it's always going to put on good racing. It seemed like he'd go on the top and get around me, and I'd be able to get a good start on the bottom and get back around him. So I think we're going to see a good racing like that all night long, and it'll be a good show.
Carson Quapple, he is going to win qualifying race number 3. Watch out for him in the feature event.
Here come the cars working through turns 3 and 4 as we see Carson Quapple getting the handshake there. He knows he will be contesting for a ValleyStar Credit Union 300 grandfather clock. As we now get the indication, we'll go green flag racing in one more lap. Ryan Millington, Matt Waltz make up row number 1 with Riley Gentry and Blake Stallings. In row 2, we've got a former winner in this field, Landon Pimpleton, driving the Toyota. He was the 2021 ValleyStar Credit Union 300 winner. He dominated that race. Not the same results last year. Started inside the top 10, but finished back in 27th. So he's hoping for redemption here this evening. But you got to make the main feature, so we're going to find out if he can do it as they work over into turns 3 and 4. Speaking of Landon Pimpleton, he starts the race in 9th spot. So that's the danger zone that we've seen all afternoon. Here comes Ryan Millington, Matthew Waltz through turns 3 and 4. The green flag is out. Qualifying race number 4 is underway.
Little bit of football in the back is not quite the best it starts for everybody, but clean at the front. And Ryan Millington will take control of this early on as Riley Gentry and Matthew Waltz fight for second. Blake Stallings and Jacob Hefner fighting for fourth. Contact further back around Landon Pimpleton as Riley Neal gets into Davey Callahan, and Callahan will park it up in turn number 4. Bring out our first yellow flag of the afternoon in qualifying race number 4. Cole Bruce is the other car that you see there up on the top end of your screen, and looks like there is a tremendous amount of fluid coming out of Bruce's machine. That could be race over for him in 3/4 of a lap.
Tough break for Cole Bruce from Fredericksburg, Virginia. He's a past limited late model champion at Dominion Raceway. As we take a look at the replay, it looks like Davey Callahan in the 41 race entry, with some contact there with Dylan Ward, and that just stacked the entire field up behind them, especially on a start when everybody's bunched up together. There is just little to no margin for error. So when somebody slows up or even checks up, you can get into problems in a big time hurry, and that's what took place for some drivers. Just wrong place, wrong time. time. And unfortunately, they don't even really get an entire lap in before we're under the yellow flag.
I have a feeling we may need some speedy dry down there in turn number 4 with the fluids coming out of the Cole Bruce machine, which a tough break for him. Same sort of deal that we saw with Thomas Scott, although Scott was able to rally back, but nothing you really can do if you're Cole Bruce. You see Davey Callahan coming down pit road just to make sure that there isn't too much damage on his machine. Riley Neal, also innocent victim there. Not really much he could have done to avoid getting into Bruce and Callahan and company. And then Landon Pembleton had a very close call there. That was a scary, scary first lap for the 2021 winner of this race.
Yeah, because we're talking about drivers all around him with problems here. And, of course, Riley Neal catching a piece of that action. So at least 3 drivers involved in this first yellow flag. The scoreboard is showing just 1 lap in the books here as work continues here. So take a look at the replay once more. Davey Callahan, you see he and the 7 get together as they work over into turns 3 and 4. There is the 0 of Landon Pembleton, who caught a piece of that action and skirts up the racetrack after he and the Callahan car were leaning on one another. There's Riley Neal and that orange and black 38 car also involved in that. So again, this is a case of the track just narrowed up, and it narrowed up very, very fast over in turns 3 and 4 on the opening lap. And we talk about it each and every Saturday night short track show. The best time to pass drivers is on a start and race restarts, because you're right there together. So I can go ahead and get a 2 for sometimes, maybe even 3 cars at one time. But there's a lot of risk in that. And sometimes with the real estate being a premium as it is, the cars get together, and we had big-time problems. There's the Sawzall out trying to get some sheet metal pulled off of that Ford Mustang as it sets down here on pit lane. We're talking about Davey Callahan in car number 41.
And think about just how close that was to being a very different outcome for Pembleton, who would have been the one spinning to the outside if he were maybe half a car length further up the racetrack. And then Brandon Pierce, who was on the outside of Callahan and Riley Neal and everybody there. If anybody spins up and he doesn't check up, he T-bones them in the middle of turn 4. So if you're Pembleton or if you're Brandon Pierce, I think you're sweating your brow and you're thankful that you don't really have that much damage on your race car, because that could have turned out very differently very quickly.
We could have been talking about the previous winner not making the feature. It could have been lights out, it's over with, it's done. But that's not the case. There's the real deal. You and I talked about that earlier. We're talking about the 38 of Riley Neal as that car sets down on pit lane. Heavy damage to Riley Neal. You can see the front end completely ripped off. We can see the radiator exposed for the driver out of Walkertown, North Carolina, as he sets down pit lane. So big-time problems early on in qualifying race number 1. We just wrapped up qualifying race number 4. We just wrapped up the 3rd qualifying race a few moments ago. We had 7 yellow flags. So caution flag fever likely will boil over into this one as well.
This is a bummer for Riley Neal. I got the chance to announce some of the races at Bowman Gray Stadium back in August, and I saw Riley before one of those, and I asked him, what plans do you have once the Bowman Gray season wraps up? Because they get done in the middle of August, and there's usually a little bit of time left to go racing throughout the fall if you'd like. And he said, we're working on putting a program together for Martinsville. We're going to try and make it there, and I'm really excited to get up there and give it my best. It's a race that I've always had sort of eyeball, a race that I've wanted to try and go after. He tried to qualify last year, didn't make it, and not the way he wanted his qualifying race to start, but a big bummer for the real deal. He showed a lot of promise in the sportsman division. He was right there with Chase Robertson, who was in one of the earlier qualifying races in the point standings in the sportsman division there all year long. He would have hoped for a better start to his day at Martinsville than this.
Well, if they're going to have problems, have them early, but not that kind of a problem. That's extreme. But for some of the other drivers with some bruised race cars, not completely battered, they'd rather have those early on in the event. Again, the scoreboard shows just 1 lap in the books here for the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 qualifying race number 4, the final one, as the field works off of turn number 4. Brandon Willard unfurls that green flag. We're going back after it once more. All of this happening behind Ryan Millington as he leads the parade in 1 and 2.
Millington clear of Matthew Waltz. So Waltz goes to second. Riley Gentry to third. Blake Stallings
on the outside, and then Jacob Hefner, who was top 5 in this race a year ago. A cleaner run through turns 3 and 4 for everybody that time by, so we'll start to try and get some green flag action here and get a green flag run going. The front 3 have separated themselves. Meanwhile, Jacob Hefner to the inside of Blake Stallings to try and get the 4th spot.
Good side-by-side action happening as they work down the backstretch over into turns 3 and 4. That white 95A, that's Jacob Hefner, as the 77 of Blake Stallings drop kick back just a little bit as they take him back to turns 1 and 2, continuing to go side-by-side. There's the 0 car. We talked about it breaking loose coming off of turn number 2. That being the 2021 winner, Landon Pimbleton, as we see the 7 look down to the inside as they work back to 3 and 4. Look at the car skirting up the racetrack. It's an asphalt course with concrete in the corners. Tire wear, not as much of an issue on this course, thankfully, due to the good surface. But the drivers and teams fighting for it now as, again, I think you've got one loose 0 race car, Brandon Pimbleton.
Look at all this action here in the middle of the pack. They were 3 wide down the back straightaway. You saw Brandon Pierce just creeping in your picture. That Thunder Road Harley-Davidson Mincy's graphics machine for Lee Pulliam Performance right there in the center of your screen, now working to the inside of Heath Causey. That would be for the 8th position if he can get it. Meanwhile, further up the racetrack, Riley Gentry and Jacob Hefner are fighting in turns 3 and 4 for the 3rd position.
Good action here with big-time problems there on car number 2 as it works very, very slow, and we're under now the 2nd yellow flag of the afternoon because of big-time problems here on the racetrack with the entire right side of that car being ripped off, toe out on that race car as it continues to stay here on the front stretch. So a tough break as we see the yellow flag come out. As here we look at the replay as they work back over into turns 1 and 2. We see Landon Pimbleton in the 0 car. He and the 2 of Brandon Pierce get together. Pierce clips the outside retaining wall with heavy front end damage to that Thunder Road race car. So Brandon Pierce, who was inside the top 10 with problems here, major for him. And now we see Landon Pimbleton coming down pit lane, giving up lots of track position. So we talked about it a few moments ago. He's a previous winner. Now he has a tough hill to climb.
And we talked about it right at the open of our broadcast here. No one is locked in after qualifying to the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, and that opens up the possibility that big names could miss this race if they don't perform in their qualifying races. We see the damage to Brandon Pierce. That almost certainly will be the end of his attempt to make the feature. But Pimbleton now is someone that we have to watch because he's going to have to make a charge with a car that, from what I've seen in these opening first few laps, has not handled as well as some of the cars that he's had in prior years here at Martinsville. So there's a very real possibility that Landon Pimbleton could miss the feature. They've got time to make it back up inside the top 10, but this is not the way you would have wanted it to start, and at least the sort of big picture signs coming off of that 0 machine and the opening laps in this qualifying race are not all that positive.
And you can see damage to the right side of the front of that race car on the hood. They put some tape on it. Looks like they have jacked the left side up, but now he will continue on. He'll roll back down pit lane as we get set to go back green flag racing. So they've simply ran out of time. They had to get that car back out on the race course. Coming to the green flag, we've had 2 caution flags here early in the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 qualifying race number 4, the final one, as we set the starting lineup here with just 4 laps complete, 21 more circuits to turn. Remember, only green flag laps count in qualifying races, and that's what we're seeing coming off of turn 4, that being the green flag. It's back out once more, and big-time problems on the start. One car not getting up to speed. I believe that was Dexter Canopy, as he was inside the top 10.
Dexter Canite may have missed the shift. It was a slow go for him on the front straightaway. He lost a very few amount of spots on the racetrack. Meanwhile, battles all over this field as they're all fighting behind Ryan Millington, Matthew Waltz, and Riley Gentry going for second for Jacob Hefner. Looking to the inside of Gentry, then thinking better of it. You've got Dylan Ward just behind Hefner, and then Trent Barnes and Boo Dalton also fighting for position.
Look at Matt Waltz and even the 09 car. They're battling for the runner-up position as they work over to turns 3 and 4, trying to sneak into that battle is Jacob Hefner. But the 09 race entry, that being Riley Gentry and Skipper Holmes' race car. He's from Easley, South Carolina. He was fast on Friday. That was one of those cars I circled on my sheet and said, keep an eye on 09. And he is certainly performing here this afternoon. He's trying to take over the 2nd spot. Looks to the inside of Brandon Pierce as they work, or make that Matthew Waltz, excuse me, as they work off of turns 3 and 4. So many drivers with very similar numbers, but that makes it fun as we watch again. 82 drivers vying for 40 spots in the big one, the ValleyStar Credit Union 300.
There are not that many drivers who have been able to hang up on the outside lane and make it work, and it is very impressive to see Matt Waltz be able to stay out there and keep Riley Gentry at bay. He does successfully and takes outright control of second. Meanwhile, Jacob Hefner's been sniffing around the rear bumper of Riley Gentry's machine to try and get that third spot if he wants, and then further back you see the battle for the transfer spot. Heath Causey, Dexter Knight currently scored as the last one there. Corey Dunn to the inside, trying to hang on, almost lost it out of turn number 4, but Knight has the transfer. Dunn is currently the first car out.
Knipe is back in. He was out for just a bit. Remember, he had problems on the race restart. Knipe looking down to the inside of Ross Dalton. That is for position number 9. Dalton driving the 50 car. Looks like Knipe will clear him coming off of turn number 4. Again, he's trying to get out of that 10th spot. He knows that's where everybody's shooting for, and he does not want to take a shot to the bumper. Knipe rolling back now to turns 3 and 4 here at lap number 10. That'll put car number 10, Ross Dalton, the first one everybody's chasing. And who is that? Riding in the 11th spot is Corey Dunn in car 75.
Corey Dunn right there. Ross Dalton, not a stranger to those who follow Ace Speedway. A long-time competitor there, winner. Also a driver who had to come through the last chance qualifier of the Old Works 8 Nationals back in 2020. So he's been in this kind of position right on the bubble before. I wonder how that experience may benefit him as we get deeper into this qualifying race. But he's got a bigger problem in the form of Corey Dunn to the inside down the front straightaway. Dalton has this by bumper length, if that perhaps, and that might be being generous at that.
Indeed, here comes Salem, Virginia's Corey Dunn. He peeked down to the inside. That's because Corey Dunn beginning to feel pressure now from Anthony Adams in the 18 car. Adams going to work on the 75 car. Gets to the back of him. Looks down to the inside. They'll go side by side here at the start-finish line as we see 13 laps reach the scoreboard, meaning we're halfway home. Side by side for the 10th position. Make that the 11th position, I should say, is Corey Dunn trying to stay ahead of Anthony Adams. Here comes the 11 of Buddy Isles with a battered race car as he and the 75 get together coming through turns 3 and 4. So gloves, James, are coming off right now.
That was a shot that Buddy Isles gave to Corey Dunn exiting turn 4 that time by. That was a big, big bump. But they are all chasing Dexter Knight. He is the one that has that final transfer position at the moment, and meanwhile, everybody back here that you see on the right-hand portion of your screen is falling behind and losing positions here. You see everybody here bouncing around up a little bit closer to the front. You've got Matt Waltz, you've got Jacob Hefner, all racing for position.
Matt Waltz from Carrollton, Virginia. He's a 2017 Larry King Law's Langley Speedway late model champion. He knows how to drive these cars and do it very, very fast. Of course, he's a former NASCAR Xfinity Series driver as well for Derek Cope Racing. Right now, car 2 being scored in position number 2 as they work back to turns 3 and 4. Going to put 17 laps in the books as they work off of corner number 4. They're happening and racing as hard as they can, more than a second and a half behind race leader Ryan Millington, who's checked out on the field. You see the 95 of Hefner maybe a little bit quicker. Puts the bumper on the back of Matt Waltz to say, hey, I'm here. Moves the 2 car up the racetrack, and I think Matt Waltz is looking at the big picture. Let me not crash the car to finish up in second.
That looked like a gentleman's agreement sort of thing between those two, where Hefner had the pace, Waltz had the smarts and said, you know what, take it. It's 4 spots, and we have 200 laps to get that position back in the feature when it really matters. There's not any sort of prize for winning any of these qualifying races outside of the starting position. So you can give up 4 spots if you're Matt Waltz, but they are just well behind Ryan Millington, just about a half straightaway that Millington has on this field. And Millington's one of those classic small team operations, sort of like Landon Pendleton, who doesn't necessarily have the resources to some of the bigger teams, but when he shows up, they are fast. They've been quick at Ace Speedway in the past, victorious in the races there, but Martinsville is a different animal altogether, and this is arguably the best that he has looked.
Ryan Millington at the head of the field. That car broke loose coming off of corner number 2. Gathers it back together, but he is out to more than a 2-second lead as the laps begin to click away. It'll be 4 more circuits to turn when he crosses the start-finish line, and there he does. So this race about to evaporate. It's about to be over here this afternoon. The final qualifying race to set the starting lineup for the big one, which will be coming up around 5 o'clock Eastern time, or a little less than an hour and a half from now. There's the second place car, number 95. That's Jacob Hefner. He's got about 4 car lengths over. Third place is Matt Waltz, as we look at multiple cars as they try to get back up towards the front. And one of those that you're looking at right now is a past winner who's not in.
Landon Pendleton is in danger of missing the feature for the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. As you look at Boo Boo Dalton and Anthony Adams, they're currently scored in 10th and 11th, right there on the edge of the transfer spot here, as it is close between those two. But Pendleton's got work to do if he wants the opportunity to defend his victory from 2 years ago.
And one thing Pendleton and others have not had the aid of, like we've had in other races here earlier today, that's yellow flags. This one's been pretty clean and green. Our last one came multiple laps ago. White flag is in the air, the final half mile for that driver, Ryan Millington, as he takes it back over to turns 1 and 2, clearly out in front by more than 3 seconds. There is on the right side of your screen, car number 50, Ross Dalton. That's the final transfer spot. Meanwhile, coming through turns 3 and 4, checkers are in the air. Your winner is going to be Ryan Millington. He'll win the final qualifying race, number 4 here this afternoon. He'll defeat Jacob Hefner, who comes home in second. And there's the battle for 10th. As they work off of turn number 4, Davey Callahan will get it. And not making the race, make that Ross Dalton, that is, not making the race will be Anthony Adams. He comes home in 11th.
Boo Boo Dalton gets the final transfer spot, but maybe the biggest story out of this race, Landon Pendleton, the 2021 ValleyStar Credit Union 300 winner, does not make the feature in 2023. It's the first time in his career that he has missed the feature here at Martinsville. It is a big disappointment for a car that was not handling well throughout the day on Friday, did not qualify all that particularly well in practice, but it is a big, big disappointment if you're Landon Pendleton to miss the feature here after the success that team found. That really was his sort of coming out party. At 16 years old, he won the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, was one of the youngest winners in the history of the event. 2 years later, going to be watching 200 laps in the feature just like the rest of us, which is not where you want to be.
That's what we talked about. Even if you've won this race in years past, you are not locked into the event. Even if you won the pole Friday night under the lights. But nevertheless, the 2021 victor, we're talking about Landon Pendleton, who had high hopes of making this event, was inside the top 10. We talked about the problems that plagued he and Brandon Pierce after they got together on the race course. They were inside the top 10, but nevertheless, Landon Pendleton will not advance. He will not make the main feature. Let's take a look. Ryan Millington will. He has won qualifying race number 4 over Jacob Hefner, who comes home in second. Matt Waltz, the Langley Speedway champ, he comes home in third. Riley Gentry was 4th, and Dylan Ward rounds out the top 5.
Trent Barnes was 6th in qualifying race number 4. 7th went to Blake Stallings. Heath Causey finished in the 8th position. DJ Knight finished in the 9th spot. And Boo Boo Dalton, Ross Dalton to some, is the final driver to make it into the feature from qualifying race number 4. Those missing include Anthony Adams, Buddy Isles Jr., Davey Callahan, the aforementioned Landon Pendleton, Jonathan Worley, Corey Dunn, Brandon Pierce, Riley Neal, Cole Bruce, and James Sweeney will all go home after our final qualifying race.
So the qualifying races, they're done. It's time to go for the big one. The ValleyStar Credit Union 300, the 200-lap race, coming up around 5 o'clock Eastern here this afternoon. Of course, coming up just before that, we'll have driver introductions at 4:30, or a little less than an hour from now. But then the big one, the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, that is the 200-lap main feature to see who wins the grandfather clock. From Martinsville Speedway, you're watching FloRacing.